Ochira de Sikansuo wohia me a me kire wade na ma che wade na wo de akwakoye wade ebere aso se yesua na Nyankopon ehun nsem bebre na me kasa afa akwan a ye betumi afa so atoto ya namo na ya namo awie peye sa bra ye woimu oman panifo ni nyina ebre na nanam ahemfufo ebre ememu a asiso ebre enkwala eba nso ebre ebibiman ye nidaso ani sei yempo yewo ensusuye bi se ye betumi aye bibi e de aboa yankrankra ya blabo ye man eni ye kro yo yemfa yesi sem no otosini ewo na Nyankopon ahenni mu na enam se bibi biara no sem ne di kan ti no na me kire wo sem kakra na ma kire honam mu sem kakra se ne betumi ama wa blabo awie peye mensa enso machi nwieye efise me hu se ebibima afa ne ntoma pa afra we ni dwumadi a otwedi ampon de hye mensa se memra meye enu nti ne frɛ me ochira ade Sikansuo wajase me be kire wade na ma che wade hwe ade kura me ba be kire wi de edi kan me ba be kire wo ekwan a wo betumi de candle afa so abo empa na empire no me be kire empire bi a wo betumi abo obi be ka se empire pa ane empire boni because ebi wo ho a wo be use evil spell sa no obi be ka no ba ni nyina no eno ane wadwene ane wakoma ani spell bi nso a obi be ka se eye good nti ma menkoso na menchechiru mu an sample se ebi a wo bebo empire bi no de obebisa ho se dai na ohwehwe afri na Nyankopon ho abra wo be waye wadwene se wo bebo empire no visualize de ohwehwe no nya de ohwehwe no ni mfonyini ewo wadwene mu ewo brempo a wo mie wa no mpo no wo betumi ahu de wo pese wo nka no sa na eye empire ahyase afei nso omu kire ewo other books mu se wo bebo empire aya gu ahomekoko breathe in and out eno no de ya ne se ema wadwene eye stable na enema bi a ahyehye wadwene so no adwene ni tumi ye free okay sisi a ye hu se me kire empire ye de candle ebo nti me be kire sigils diagrams pentacles nkakra emu nchirechiremu na ma kire ebi sane ye de ye adwuma odwumade we de TV de so wa wani tia so obi the candle ebebo empire after wa visualize the ohwehwe na ade ba ko so we observe the day and the time any the moon phase owo mu say de hu empire na wo bebo say odofo hu empire say sika hu empire say dwuma hu empire say yaresa hu empire de also hu say eda kwasi ada no eye eda eye awia ohan kase a edi na ebi mu frɛ ni spirit no say omoye edinkra symbols no ya frɛ no edinkra hene eno ni sigi hye ohan bofo no eno saa niema we mu na Europeans ne bae no mo be copy ye eno mo kofa de ye Angel Michael sigil nti uhu edinkra hene symbol na uhu edinkra hene symbol na etisei saa na Angel Michael nso symbol no eno nso etie we ye frɛ no edinkra hene saa nso na eye Angel Michael symbol no etie de mpesa me ka che no se obi kire wade a membu hu se wo ye obibini na wo de wo nananom an enim hwe wo ma mfa hwe ama hwe ye konko asomu abra ye wo Misrim asase so the Exodus movement no ema ebibima ya blabo tete pansamye ansa na ye ba besue oman Gold Coast yi mu nso no 400 years na ye call enkwaso mu ukeka ni nyina abomu a ebibima ya konkwaso mu more than 7,000 years if you say eni bie fitiase no abra Egypt ahenie no twam no ehwa na ye start yenkwaso na eguso koso ebedu sabre obibini pa enim de ekoso niema wo hu bebre onte ase ma me chechiro mu se na me kasafa obofo kwesi ada no ye wo obofo edwada obofo ewodi edwada so no and half moon bon se Islam for no mafa star any half moon no mu de ayo ma hyenso de we nyina ye edinkra symbols a ewo ho dada na me kire no mu nyina ebi wo ho a ebenada bofo no sa wo hwe Kabbalah teachings ni mu a we say no na gina ho ma ebenada bofo sigi we say no ubehu condom ene uko gynecology so mu ho na bonsi e disane ma we no we ni wo ekire owuo ebofo eni nti utie ni din na ye frɛ no ebenada eda ye de bo ebena mechechiri mu ache ne honhum sam no mu na uko Kabbalah teachings no mu a ye wo sigi bi a eno so te sese eye Archangel Raphael onu so de ye obofo a onu no hwe ayaresa ensem nyina ala so se ukoso na mechirechire o mystical symbols se uko Kabbalah teachings ni mu nso a wo behu sigi bi say eno so ye Sachiel asase ya ni symbol eno so ni uko suko na Kabbalah teachings ni mu a wo behu symbol bi say enya hu pe o se o kai o trim say we ye fofie ubehu se ye symbols mu ni yakua ba mu ni aye maame bi ani titafa na nanufu ne we anu ani o mo frɛ no ank tutu ankama ena de saa we baaye tutu ankama o mo chichiri mu kokɔ no numu ni ebenya Horus ni nema Egyptian nema symbols ni bebre we ye dinkra symbols yemu ene ye de baaye enso ene hwew eye obofo anel sije wonti ase ene sei ebibima ye wade o ye ntimi kire wade a na me che wade na wo de akwa ye wade ye wo sije ubi nso sei eno so ye Archangels Kaziel teach sije no no so ne de ene sei anel ne de ende o de yedie enijie awaruye tumidie eneba Sachiel no de se eban one seed no wa ye ne bebre se wo ye wadwuma na opese enkoso se wo pe awo ho nsem on se edwadie ho nsem banking ho nsem ena Kaziel no oye ahomegye bofo na mechemi so bo hu senkofo kwayi a no ma hye tuntum bibisa se ase ne se ya obeka se ana no ma hye kokko no egina ho ma obofo na omeye bob na no se owu obofo ena tuntum no so gina ho ma ahomegye na mechire no ahomegye ebre no nti obofo a nti ne se eda etosonson no twedi ampon Nyankopon je na home otwedi ampon Nyankopon na ono ane obofo a odi ye frɛ say memene da so no yo afei ye ko teachings mu so a ubehu say Kabbalah teachings no ubehu sije ubi say ubehu sije ebi say na ubehu ebi say we no sa triangle say na oha no say ukọ electronics mu a neutral, positive, negative. Ukon science mu asani e calculate no. Papa bone ene de odemu sa. obi nso bɛka sɛ agya ɔbaa ne sunsun kronkron sɛnea wo nso wote aseɛ bia by triangle ne ti efesi ɛsoro no gyina hɔ ma honhom a ɔyɛ masculine ɔyɛ masculine spirit a okuta both neutral negative ɔyɛ masculine negative masculine positive masculine and neutral masculine spirit na mɛkyerɛ no saa na ase kyerɛ ɛna deɛ ne ti kyerɛ ɛfam no aya ɛno so gyina hɔ ma feminine spirit negative feminine positive feminine neutral feminine spirit na mɛkyerɛ no enti sɛ wobɛhu sɛ the masculine spirit no and the feminine spirit no ɛka bɔ mu a saa star way ebi mu frɛ no the star of David wobɛhu sɛ wokɔ sɛ waterfall no sɛ deɛ bɔ nso mu so de we say ɛbɔ even aban mu kora nkɔfo yusu saa sigi we wobɛhu Islam for any other religious we say Israel omo ina omo yusu sigi we ye frɛ no sex symbol ye frɛ no ebi mu frɛ no the star of David a sex symbol nti sɛ ebi mu ya na omatwa inside no circle no na kyerɛ sɛ the father the mother and the son nti bu sɛ saa sigi we no ayɛ refer to the spirit of the son edinkra hene no symbol no na ɛda no finfini nti sɛ the masculine and the feminine spirit ni hyia the middle no ɛyɛ awo the ohwehwɛ no wo result na bɛba no the spirit wo be create no the feminine and the masculine spirit ni hyia that the next thing is also give birth to a spirit nti a spirit no na ɛyɛ wo thought ɛyɛ wo thought wo send no sɛ wokɔso kɔ a woba benya wobɛhu sɛ yɛyɛ anaasɛ wobɛhu sɛ in mystical anaasɛ Kabbalah teachings no obi ayɛ square anaasɛ wayɛ cross bibi say saa cross we na ya uhu no mean kind the cross of the dead or the cross of life me the mekyerɛ with simple cross your friend say the spirit of water and the spirit of air or the wind nti ne obi ye enkyerɛkyerɛ bi o se kɔ enkwantanan so nti sɛ wokɔ enkwantanan no so a baby a enkwantanan no so be hu sɛ the masculine spirit no negative feminine spirit ni na ehia ɛwɔ hɔ ɛna wo saa na tie nkwantanan so nti onso gina nkwantanan no so a ye flow mu the elemental powers elemental energies ana sani obeka no to be ukogira nkwantanan so and that means wo a wo gina finfine no wo na wo connect the element and now we say what connect element ni together and we connect element ni together we so here senses we be say Ghana yesika no na ye de ye senses no we be say enkonoma kan say Ghana black star Ghana black sense na me kire no we ye senses wason waniwa wutekrema honam what you say wo senses enti no se obi kire obibi na se konkwantanan so at the moment ubegina kwantanan so no then they hear build and your senses to connect the elements together me chekire mu sania ebi a wokoye adwuma bi a ana se wo hu symbol bi a wo behu ekwan a ye fa so ede ye adwuma abra ma chekire mu abofo de na ma chekire mu symbol no later ma chekire mu symbol no up to 9 symbols ni 30 na what you see afa ye ba straight to ekwan a ye fa so de candle ye adwuma ebi a wo pese wo use sa symbols we bi emfanya adwuma na ye wi a me de wo beko Sumerian ritual bi ne makwa akɔkyerɛ wo ritual kakra bi a obetumi de aye ma odwumadi akoso abra wahu de oba beye na bia wo yusu any sigil bi e de aye wadwuma no na wo beso candle pa dia the first thing or say wo consecrate woman baby a wo ye adwuma na hote nye edan mu aye basabasa ana efi wo mu edan a wapepa mu yie wa ankasa nso oye obi a wadwale se winim obofo a wo pese obe use no ne color wo be use ana se ebra adwumadi a wo ba bedi no color esiti sa adwumadi na wa dress te sa se winim candle color wo be use a no wa use kan se winim candle color na bia white color no utumi de ye adwuma bia nti se wo be use a de hia no wo be consecrate wo candle no de na wo be ye fa abra wo nchina waboso mpa ye nyina awie no wo de enchine no egu wo kan other books ombeka ne say occult book or religious book na Nebzek the God of Jacob no God of Isaac kan wankasa wo God the God of Sikansuo bo wa wudi what you say wonso ye onyankopon ba wo onyankopon tumi wo mu Psalm 81 verse 6 ekire se wo ye onyankopon enti wonso onyankopon no owe aya monje mu huni fa enche ni gu wonsa ni famu fa candle no to efimfini wonsam fimfini se fa candle no posa enche ne fa ho fa ko esoro se ya wo ye no purification to the masculine spirit uwi asa shas ase na fa twitwe ho ebra say ebra ne down eno so ye purification to the feminine spirit ebia ontiase because bano candle works anasa honhom semu a even in habem mpo a nipa mpo a oba ne mema bema ene ka bom ye nipa we covenant oil ebia onso ye adwuma depending on adwuma wo ye any oil a ebeye good e de amount wo de go wonsem a fa anoint wo candle no to the masculine spirit and at the same time to the feminine spirit. Uwia just wo candle no aye holy any clean. Also we say bia obi a o yi candle na ma ono na bia se bi wakodwudwam kura ma obi a wanwale na obi yi candle na ma o efi aka no ana se bi mpo a na wabu ne nsa ana wakodi bone bi na obi yi candle ana so package candle no nti abre bi a obeye candle works no eno no epa hotew ahotew na obeye honhom adwuma no ye de ahotew na enem me ba be kire wo ekwan a ye faso ebo empire ma de ohwehwe ebemu saa obofo bi obofo we kan the book of Necronomicon kan angels na omuboa miracles ewo nipa abrabo ne mu nti na me say we ne ye Sumerian rite and as a ritual ye wo obofo bi a ye frɛ no Barashakushu ye bɔ ne mla ne say Baduru wo pese uhu sigili a meka ho asɛm ya ukọ Google no an say obodi Barashakushu 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 o God you no correct but ma menchiro Barashakushu no Barashakushu Barashakushu say ena ni sigil no etie oyo bofo a oye miracles say ebano in terms of candle burning rituals and say later may do any other incantation they attract ni to me kushui say obi yare na wo pese wo mo empire man no say wo hwehwe ade afri obi ho say bibi biala eye good intention a wo hwehwe eno ane se ube inscribe adekro no egu candle a wodbebo empire ne ho we mu nyina wobetumi ayusu barashakushu every day every hour depending on idea wo hwehwe say wo intention say de wo beye obi boni o wo beye obi papo de wo pese wo ye no inscribe type adekro no egu candle ne ho wo inscribe adekro no gu candle no atro fa wo na tro adekro no abra wa purify no wa consecrate na ye bibia wie no wo betumi ayusu virgin parchment paper and as a paper bond and A4 sheet atro ni sigil no draw sigil no ato form and now betumi apesetin white and blue na one inscribe ni so candle no abra wa inscribe de ohwehwe no egu no bo spirit ni din baduru bone emprenso na ubon emprenso bia kan de ohwehwe repeat sa affirmation way 108 owie a fa candle no so waso ni say no owie a waso candle no ubeso candle no uso candle na fa ma candle no bi drop a fasi sigil no mu gina sigil no na repeat wa affirmation no 108 no senior mechire wono by beginning no wo ya obekura sigil no na obekura candle no na wabo umpaye no senior ohwehwe no obehase a obebo affirmation no barashakushu anasa angelical name no baduru barashakushu baduru na ode esimu na wabo 108 na fe waja ho na candle no ahia ma no awie yade way the new moon, waxing moon, full moon, dark moon, depending on your intention. Medawase. Sabre so de mechra wo obofo bi a ye freno Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebul, Ascode. Sigil a ye debo empire na ahonhoma omukura so ye Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebul, Ascode. Sa sigil no eye ni se utumi ede ye ade tia obibia odwen se odi wo bone se ebia obede wo etwe bibi ewo court obi ni etwe bibi wo court na ebia opese wodi ne so enkonim saa sigi we ana obetumi ede aye abo empire ma edi ne so enkonim sigil no sei na etie nti ebasa wo betro Satan ani Lucifer Beelzebul obecho Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebul ene Ascode ewo sigil no so sigil no sei na etie waye sa adini nyina bewie no wo behia red candle ebre a eye paama sa empaibo we eye debit se memeneda anase ebenada if say duduo na we okakotiti obi ase no enti senia wa ye purify we candle to the father to the masculine spirit and the feminine spirit wa consecrate we the oil wa anointing we candle wa throw we intentions egu say bia kwame kwadwo media anka openi bi odo de na funa ye ti say no no na nka me din de begun me pese me bo ni din wo be pepanie say you obi din a inscribe edin no efegu hu fa wo fa chiro oni akro ni din no wo chiro edin na wo be frɛ abra wo waye wo dan no mu fefefe waye bibia wasiesie wo wate wo hu a wo ba be ye adwuma waye inscribe either with the chalk and satin and a vegment paper and a paper bond and a A4 inscribe saa sigil no wopɛ sɛ womfa nyɛ adwuma no wafa wo candle wayɛ de ɔsɔ nyinaa no wobɛfrɛ ɔbɔfoɔ no edin by the name of Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebub, Armageddon, Ascodel. Send your ɔbɔfoɔ no edin ne kyerɛ no wofrɛ ne edin no 7 times na akyerɛ no wobɛyɛ saa deɛ wei ɛyɛ the hour of the mass anaasɛ the hour of Satan. The hour of mass no ɛyɛ ɔbɔfoɔ Samael ɛbenada ɔbɔfoɔ no ɔno anaasɛ the hour of Satan no yɛ ɔtwede ampɔn na Nyankopɔn memeneda ne hour ɛnyɛ memeneda nkonwe da biara mu depending on the hour wonim say hour way enu nti na wonya angelical book ene ubenya abofo no ebra ye de bɔ mpaye ne ehu ehintasem nyina enti wachro waye awie no we use the hour of the mass or the hour of Satan no na wo de waso candle no waso candle no na wo de candle no ebi waso candle na wa fresh spirit ni din no wo de candle ni bi egu ho na wo de asim se wo de asim no mpaibo we ni ye bɔ no wo abro a wo ye naked wo ye naked ewo wo dem wo bɛbɔ a hwehwɛ hour enka ye good say wo be use hour the hour of the mass or the hour of Satan na wo de abosa empire way ubo a say ebi a obi na ode wo court na your friend say wo pese un stop no na ubo ni din ebi a hell ebi a ubo wafre by the name of Satan, Lucifer, Armageddon, Beelzebub, Ascodel wo friend we a hell wo asomasi wo na wo pese wonya mi sei wani nso ade ene se wo na wo pese menye sei dia ene memma unya ohome empo na wahome asasi a wo begina so enya asasi we nyina so mfa nkode mebone sei ntumi no mu nsuo uwie a ukuta wo panie na wo de awo asomasi koro no wo de bewo no na wapia panie no na afa candle ne mu ebefa candle ne mu na aforme cross te sesei for me cross te sesei a na oda so ka wo intentions wo mpaye de ntia obo sampaye no wo be repeat sa wo mpaye no for 108 unya de panin esimu wi a wo de agu ho wo de wo candle no esi so ho na wo be repeat wo mpaye 108 wo ba wo mpaye ni wi a eno ni ja candle no na enhye na obehu na Nyankopɔn enu onyam we no manchro se fakodi bone fakokunkofo na emum se bibi twitwaje o bibi eto na wo pese wo ntwitwanye wo honhum ni by so obe stop you obi so obi ntumi take action negative action against you eho ene ye yusu sijiwe minim se ebia obehia nkyeremu pa ye ana obepe wo nsem bisaye bia obepe se obebisa me frame me number 0246060103 ana 0278242789 any numbers are ewo screen mu nyina no se ofra ya beje oso ni ani edi nkomo bibi biala hawo wo honhum mu ana honhum mu anamotu obi a opese utu se fa waware ho wusika sem ho wadwuma wo bebie wadwuma wa bia enkoso bibi biala se obetu kwan de ohwehwe bia opese wo ye wablabo mu enhwehwe mu empo no opese wunsua mystical art ana wunsua herbs unsua senia ye invoke angels, genies, demons, dwarfs, any senia tie bia no bra ochira ade Sikansuo kingdom ne ye be kire wade ne ya che wade na ode akoye wade ye o labadi Bola Junction anase Kokrobite agro farm. Follow me on my Facebook page no ochira ade Sikansuo follow na se ko subscribe e wo me YouTube channel Ochirade Sikansuo na mɛkyerɛ w'adeɛ na makyɛ w'adeɛ abere ne abere nyinaa. Meda wase.
Warm greetings to those who are truly searching, not just listening, but listening with their spirit. There comes a point in every journey when knowledge alone is no longer enough. When another quote, another book, or another lecture stops filling the void, you begin to realize that the answers you're looking for are not out there. They are quietly echoing within you, waiting for your silence, waiting for you to stop speaking, stop proving, and start becoming. But here is a secret, one you may have glimpsed without knowing its depth. Once you discover something powerful about yourself, once you touch a truth that changes the way you see the world, you will feel an overwhelming urge to share it, to talk about it, to shout it from the rooftops. That's natural. That's the mind trying to validate its breakthrough. But the ancient wisdom whispers otherwise. Keep your mouth shut. Not because the truth is shameful, not because it must be hidden, but because some things, when spoken too soon, lose their potency. Some truths are like seeds. You don't yank them out of the soil the moment they begin to sprout. Greetings to all of you. Thank you for being present, because that is where everything begins with presence. Before we talk about the future, before we think about improvement or success, we must first learn to be here in this moment. That alone is a great achievement in today's world. The topic we reflect on today is one that holds great importance, not only in the Shaolin tradition, but in every human life. How do we overcome our inner enemies? Let me ask you something. What is holding you back right now? What is stopping you from becoming the person you know you are capable of becoming? Most people point outward. They blame the job, the schedule, the lack of opportunity. The Shaolin path teaches us something different. It teaches us that the greatest battles are never outside of us. They are always inside. There are 5 inner enemies that we face each day, whether we see them or not. Doubt, fear, laziness, arrogance, and distraction. And these enemies are silent. They don't announce their arrival. They creep in through your habits. They whisper through your thoughts, disguise themselves as comfort, as rest, even as realism. But make no mistake, these are the forces that weaken your spirit. So how do we fight back? The first step is awareness. If you cannot see the enemy, you cannot defeat it. So you must learn to observe your own mind. Notice how your thoughts react when you face difficulty. Notice what excuses appear when you don't feel like showing up. This is not judgment. This is training. Shaolin Way is not to suppress these inner enemies, but to understand them. Only through understanding can you transform them. Let's begin with doubt. Doubt says, I can't. But what it really means is, I am afraid to fail. To overcome doubt, you must take action. Even a small step forward silences that voice. Confidence is not something you are born with. It is something you build by doing what you thought you couldn't. Is fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of rejection. Fear of loss. But here is what fear truly is, a prediction of pain that hasn't happened yet. It's the mind running to the future instead of staying in the now. Breathe. Return to this moment. In this moment, fear has no power over you. The third enemy is laziness. Laziness is not about being tired. It is about forgetting your purpose. When you remember why you began, your energy returns. Shaolin monks do not train for comfort. They train to discipline the spirit. And that discipline is the antidote to laziness. Then we have arrogance. Arrogance is the belief that you no longer need to grow. It stops learning, blocks humility. Always remain a student, especially of yourself. The more you know, the more you understand that there is more to learn. Finally, we face distraction. Distraction steals your time, your focus, your life. You don't lose your path all at once. You lose it one unimportant click, one meaningless hour, one unconscious decision at a time. So guard your attention. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. What is the goal of overcoming these enemies? It is not to become perfect. It is to become aware, disciplined, and present. When you are present, you are no longer reacting to life. You are responding with wisdom. When you are disciplined, you do not wait for motivation. You act with clarity. And when you are aware, you do not fight blindly. You choose your battles. And this is how the future is created. Not through force, not through wishing, but through mastering this moment. Overcoming your inner enemies today shapes the person you become tomorrow. Every time you rise in the morning and choose discipline over comfort, every time you choose to train your mind when others give in, every time you breathe through the fear instead of running from it, you are becoming stronger. You are becoming free. In the Shaolin Temple, strength is not measured by how hard you hit. It is measured by how still you can remain, how patient, how focused, and how deeply you understand yourself. Because once you conquer the mind, once you silence the enemy within, nothing left outside that can truly defeat you. So take this day, make it yours. Breathe deeply, walk calmly, and act with intention. Because the future you dream of is not found tomorrow. It is forged today in this moment. Moment is yours. The true enemy is not out there. It never was. From the beginning, the greatest challenges you have faced, the ones that made you hesitate, that made you feel stuck, whispered that you were not enough, those didn't come from the outside world. They came from within. It is easy to point the finger outward. It is easy to say, my environment is too difficult, or people are holding me back. But the Shaolin path does not allow that kind of blame. It asks you to turn inward. It demands that you look into the mirror, not the one on your wall, the mirror inside your own mind. Because the enemy you are fighting is not someone else's opinion. It is your own self-doubt. The voice in your head that says, you're too late. The fear that says, you'll fail like last time. The laziness that tells you to skip the hard work today, just this once. These voices do not belong to anyone else. They are your own patterns. They are your own shadows. And the longer you run from them, the more power they have over you. But once you stop running, once you sit with them, face them, listen without judgment, something shifts. You begin to see clearly. You begin to realize that these enemies are not your natural state. You were not born to fear, to procrastinate, to stay small. These are learned behaviors. And what has been learned can be unlearned. The enemy within is not to declare war on yourself. It is to begin the process of healing, to move from unconscious reaction to conscious response. Because once you become aware of your inner obstacles, you are no longer controlled by them. You become the observer, and the observer has power. This is not a path of comfort. It is a path of discipline, and discipline is often misunderstood. People think it means harshness, punishment, rigidity. But true discipline is an act of compassion. It is saying to yourself, I care enough about who I can become that I will not give in to who I used to be. When you rise each morning with discipline, you are not doing something painful. You are doing something sacred. You are choosing to face the part of you that wants to hide, the part of you that wants ease over growth. And you are saying, not today. You are saying, I am more than my habits. I am more than my fears. Some days will be harder than others. The inner enemy does not give up quickly. It will disguise itself. It will pretend to be logic or comfort or even self-care. It will say, you deserve a break. It will say, this goal is unrealistic anyway. But behind those words is the same old pattern, the same fear of failure, the same resistance to transformation. So what do? You stay, you breathe, you watch the mind, and you do not follow its old roads. You build a new path, one step at a time. You may stumble. That is part of it. But each time you get up and continue, the inner enemy becomes weaker. Not because you've crushed it, because you've outgrown it. Remember, no one will ever fight you more than your own mind when you try to change. And that is why the inner enemy must be your focus, not your competitors, not the opinions of strangers, expectations of the world. Only the inner war matters. Because once that is won, everything else becomes simple. Not easy, but clear. This is the heart of the Shaolin way. You do not need to escape your life, your job, your family, or your circumstances. You need only to confront your inner patterns. When you bring awareness to them, they begin to dissolve. When you act with intention rather than impulse, you shift from surviving to living. Is not philosophy for monks alone. This is not a path reserved for temples and silence. This is for every person who wakes up with a goal and a doubt in the same breath. This is for the one who wants to break a habit, to overcome fear, to live fully, not someday, but now. The enemy you've been running from is tired too. It is waiting for you to stop and look it in the eyes. And when you do, you will see it was never there to destroy you. It was there to awaken you. It was there to test whether you were serious about becoming who you say you want to be. So don't run. Don't fight blindly. Breathe, understand, and then act. Not from fear, but from clarity. Not from reaction, but from presence. You are not here to defeat others. You are here to master yourself. That is the real victory. And that is where your future begins. Discipline is not punishment, is not something that restricts you or suppresses your spirit. True discipline is an expression of self-respect. It is a silent promise you make to yourself that you will not abandon your growth. You will not betray your potential. Many people misunderstand what discipline truly is. They believe it is harsh, rigid, something to be avoided unless absolutely necessary. But in truth, discipline is a quiet and consistent act of love. It is how you show that you value your time, your body, your thoughts, and your life. When you live without discipline, you hand your life over to impulses. You allow mood, comfort, and convenience to dictate your path. But impulses do not build peace. They build chaos. They give pleasure in one moment and regret in the next. And when regret becomes a pattern, suffering follows. But when you live with discipline, you begin to structure your life around what matters. You rise even when it's easier to sleep. You move your body even when your mind resists. You stay with difficult emotions instead of running from them. You do what is necessary, not because it feels good in the moment, but because it builds something better in the long term. This is what it means to respect yourself. To no longer live by accident, but to live with intention. Discipline is not about denying yourself joy. It is about choosing a deeper kind of joy. The kind that comes from knowing you are aligned with your values. The kind that comes from looking in the mirror and saying, I showed up for myself today. And let us be honest, some days you will not feel like showing up. You will feel tired, uninspired, perhaps even hopeless. But that is exactly why discipline matters. Because on those days, you need something stronger than motivation. Motivation is a mood. It comes and goes. Discipline is a commitment. It stays. If you wait for motivation to train, to work, to reflect, to heal, you will spend your life waiting. If you cultivate discipline, you take back control. You are no longer a servant to your emotions. You become the master of your actions. Think of the Shaolin monk who wakes before sunrise. He does not ask himself, do I feel like training today? He trains because training is part of his path. It is not optional. It is part of who he is. That is discipline. Not forcing, but flowing with your higher intention, even when your lower habits resist. And this is available to you too. You don't need to wear robes or live in a temple to practice discipline. Every time you resist the temptation to numb yourself with distraction, you are practicing. Every time you take one more conscious breath instead of reacting impulsively, you are practicing. Every time you say no to what is easy and yes to what is right, you are training your mind. The beautiful truth is this: discipline grows stronger the more you use it. The first time you choose to rise early, it's difficult. But the 10th time, it feels natural. The more you repeat a conscious action, the more it becomes part of you. Eventually, what once felt like effort becomes your new normal. And that is how transformation happens, not through one dramatic act, but through small, consistent choices made with intention. Discipline is not about perfection. You will miss days. You will stumble. You will fall. But even then, discipline is not lost. It lives in the choice to get back up. It lives in the refusal to give up on yourself. Self-respect means allowing yourself to fall without allowing yourself to stay down. To be disciplined is to live in alignment with what you say you want. If you say you want clarity, but you clutter your day with noise, there is no alignment. If you say you want health, but ignore the needs of your body, there is no alignment. If you say you want peace, but feed yourself conflict, there is no alignment. Discipline restores that alignment. It brings your words, your values, and your actions into harmony. And when that harmony exists, something powerful happens. You stop being at war with yourself. You stop needing to prove things to others. You walk your path not with anxiety, but with quiet confidence, because you know you are living with integrity. Discipline frees you. It gives you the ability to act with clarity even in chaos. Stay grounded even when emotions rise. To keep moving forward even when the path is steep. It gives you access to a strength that is not shaken by external events, because it is rooted deeply inside. So when you think of discipline, do not picture suffering. Picture strength. Picture peace. Picture a life where you can trust yourself fully, where you do not make promises to yourself and break them, where your actions consistently reflect your highest values, not restriction. That is freedom, and that freedom is earned one disciplined day at a time. Change begins with awareness. Mastery begins with awareness. Peace, growth, all of them begin with a simple moment of recognition, the moment you see clearly, not through the lens of ego, fear, or habit, but through the calm eyes of observation. Most people move through life unconsciously. They repeat the same reactions, the same patterns, the same mistakes, all while wondering why nothing changes. But the truth is, nothing can change if it is not first seen. You cannot heal what you avoid. You cannot grow from what you deny. You must be willing to observe without judgment. To cultivate awareness is to become the watcher of your own mind. It is to notice the emotions as they rise, the thoughts as they pass, and the urges as they pull you. You begin to realize that you are not your emotions. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who sees them. This realization is powerful, because once you separate yourself from the noise inside, you begin to take back your freedom. You are no longer controlled by anger. You see the anger and choose how to respond. You are no longer trapped by fear. You notice the fear and breathe through it. You are no longer pushed by distraction. You recognize the pull and return to your focus. In Shaolin practice, this kind of awareness is not optional. It is foundational. Without it, there is no control over the body, no discipline of the mind, no depth to spiritual understanding. It is through awareness that a practitioner learns to move deliberately, to speak consciously, to live with purpose. But this kind of awareness does not happen by accident. It must be trained. Just as the muscles of the body must be exercised, so too must the muscle of the mind. And the training begins with stillness. When you sit in silence, when you observe your breath, when you slow your pace, you create space. And in that space, awareness grows. You begin to notice things you were too busy to see before, how easily your mind jumps to judgment, how often your body tenses, how frequently your thoughts spiral into the future or the past. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. You may not like what you see. You may notice fear, impatience, insecurity. But remember, awareness is not about judging those things. It is about seeing them clearly, because only when they are seen can they be transformed. Awareness turns reaction into response. Instead of automatically snapping at someone when you feel stressed, you pause. You breathe, you recognize the stress, and you choose a different action. That 1 second of awareness makes the difference between conflict and connection, between chaos and calm. And this does not only apply to the difficult moments. Awareness also deepens your experience of joy. It makes you present. When you eat, you actually taste. When you walk, you actually feel the ground beneath your feet. When you speak with someone, you actually listen, not to respond, to understand. This is what it means to be alive, not just to exist, but to experience fully. Without awareness, you miss your life. Days blur together, emotions control your actions, habits lead you blindly. But with awareness, life opens up. Even the ordinary becomes meaningful. Even struggle becomes a teacher. Awareness is the root of mastery because it brings choice. Without it, you are a prisoner of your past conditioning. But with it, you become free to shape your future with intention. You can see your patterns and decide which ones to keep and which ones to let go. You can interrupt the automatic and replace it with the conscious. This applies to all areas of life. In your work, awareness helps you notice your focus, your energy, your effort. In your relationships, it helps you speak with clarity and listen with compassion. In your inner world, allows you to guide your thoughts instead of being swept away by them. The path to mastery is not about adding more. It is about seeing more clearly, seeing more honestly. And that begins with attention. Attention to your breath, attention to your thoughts, attention to your actions. This attention is not tight or forceful. It is gentle and consistent. Even if you start with just 5 minutes a day, it is enough. Sit, breathe, observe. That is all. There is no need to analyze. Just watch. You will be surprised how much begins to shift simply through noticing. And over time, you will realize something extraordinary. The more aware you become, the less control the inner enemies have over you. Because awareness exposes their tactics, it reveals their disguises, and once they are seen, they begin to dissolve. That is the power of awareness. It does not fight. It simply sees. What is seen clearly can no longer manipulate you. So wherever you're on your journey, begin there. Start by observing one moment, one breath, one reaction, and return to that again and again, because every moment of awareness is a step toward freedom, a step toward mastery, a step toward becoming who you were always meant to be. We often imagine mastery as something grand, a dramatic transformation, a powerful breakthrough, changing moment. But this image is misleading. True mastery is not the result of one extraordinary event. It is the quiet accumulation of small, ordinary moments. The moments no one sees. The moments you choose to stay when it's easier to walk away. The moments you keep going, not because anyone is watching, but because you made a promise to yourself. It is easy to be inspired in big moments, easy to feel motivated when everything aligns. But mastery is not about what you do when conditions are perfect. Mastery is built when conditions are not ideal. It is built when the morning is cold, when the body is tired, when the results are invisible. It is built when there is every reason to stop, but you continue anyway. Each time you choose to stay consistent, you build something invisible inside yourself, a strength, clarity, trust. You train the mind to move beyond emotion, beyond convenience. And slowly, you begin to realize that greatness is not found in intensity. It is found in consistency. 1,000 small efforts. 1,000 simple choices. Again and again. Is the way of the Shaolin path. Every movement, every breath, every repetition is an opportunity to train, not just the body, but the mind. A single punch practiced with full awareness contains more wisdom than 100 performed with distraction. A single step taken with full presence becomes a tool for inner development. People often search for shortcuts. They want to leap over the process to reach the goal without walking the path. But in doing so, they miss the essence of the journey, because it is the repetition, the quiet work, the unnoticed effort that shapes your character. You become what you repeat, and what you repeat you become. This applies not just in physical training, but in all aspects of life. If you repeatedly react with impatience, impatience becomes your habit. If you repeatedly avoid discomfort, avoidance becomes your nature. But if you repeatedly return to focus, to stillness, to right action, then those qualities begin to take root within you. Every moment matters, even the smallest ones, especially the smallest ones, because those are the moments when transformation is silently taking place. The moment you choose to sit in silence rather than scroll your phone. The moment you decide to hold your posture a few seconds longer. The moment you choose to breathe instead of react. These are not dramatic acts, but they are powerful because they shift the direction of your life 1 degree at a time. And a 1 degree shift, repeated daily, leads you to an entirely different destination. Mastery requires patience. It requires the humility to begin again every day without attachment to immediate results. It asks that you fall in love with the process, not just the outcome, because the process is where you are shaped. The process is where discipline, awareness, and self-respect are cultivated. There is no finish line, no final moment when you will say, "Now I am a master." Because mastery is not a destination. It is a relationship between you and your practice, between you and your values. It is a way of being, and this relationship is built one moment at a time. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to be extraordinary. You only need to be sincere. Show up, do the work. Trust the process. This is how the most powerful transformations unfold. Quietly, gently, like water shaping stone. Some days, the progress will feel invisible. You will question whether anything is changing. But those are the most important days. Because when you continue without reward, when you act without applause, when you persist through the unseen hours, that is when mastery is being forged. In the end, no one sees the hours you spend alone. No one sees the doubts you wrestle with, the setbacks you endure, the discipline you practice in silence. But those moments matter. They build you. They shape the person you become. And eventually they become visible, not in your words, but in your presence. Mastery is not loud. It is not boastful. It does not need to prove itself. True mastery is quiet, steady, grounded. It is not about controlling others or displaying power. It is about mastering yourself, your mind, your energy, your intentions. So wherever you are on your journey, return to the small moments. Let them be your teachers. Let them be enough. Each time you show up with sincerity, you are walking the path. And the path is always here, beneath your feet, within your breath, inside your next decision. Future is not something you wait for. It is something you build moment by moment, breath by breath, choice by choice. Keep building, keep returning, keep refining. Because mastery is not found in the future, found in this moment. And this moment is already here. In the journey of life, there are no shortcuts that can carry you past your own mind. The true struggle is not against the outside world, but against the forces that lie within: doubt, fear, laziness, anger, and pride. These are the inner enemies. They do not wear armor, and they do not shout. They whisper. They appear when you are tired, when you are discouraged, when you are alone. And it is in those moments that your true strength is tested. Not the strength of your body, but the strength of your spirit. Overcoming these inner enemies does not require violence. It requires understanding. You do not defeat darkness by fighting it. You defeat it by turning on the light. The light is awareness. The light is discipline. The light is the steady glow of small actions, repeated with care and conviction. Important to remember that every person faces this inner war. It is not a sign of weakness that you experience doubt or fear. It is a sign that you are human. The difference lies not in whether these things appear, in how you respond when they do. Will you follow them? Or will you meet them with stillness, with clarity, and with courage? To respond with clarity, you must cultivate discipline, not the harsh, punishing kind, but the quiet, respectful kind. Discipline is the way you honor your own potential. It is how you protect what is important to you. When you build discipline, you are telling yourself, "I will not abandon myself. Even when it's difficult, even when no one else sees, I will show up." Without discipline, you drift. You live reactively, pulled by moods and distractions. But with discipline, you become anchored. You are no longer a victim of your emotions, but a witness. You act from principle, not from impulse. And this creates a deep and lasting peace, not because life becomes easier, but because you become stronger. But discipline alone is not enough. You must pair it with awareness. To be disciplined without awareness is to become rigid, even blind. But when awareness guides your discipline, something powerful happens. You begin to see the patterns that hold you back. You recognize the voice of fear, the habits of escape, the ways you avoid responsibility. And as you see them, you begin to unlearn them. Awareness is the beginning of mastery because it is the beginning of choice. When you are unaware, you live by repetition. You do not act, you react. But when you are aware, you see clearly. You respond wisely. You take responsibility for your inner state. And with that responsibility comes freedom. It is not a destination you reach in a single day. It is not a title you earn. Mastery is not something you wear. It is something you live. And it is built not in grand gestures, but in small, quiet moments. The way you breathe in the face of stress. The way you rise after falling. The way you return again and again to your path even when your mind tempts you to leave. These moments may seem small, but they're everything. Because in the small, you find the seed of the great. A tree does not grow overnight. It grows slowly from a single root, nourished by countless drops of water. Your growth is the same. Each drop matters. Each step matters. Each breath, when taken with awareness, becomes part of your training. And so the invitation is simply pay attention, not in a forced or anxious way, but in a curious and compassionate way. Watch your thoughts. Watch your actions. Watch your responses. And as you watch, ask yourself, is this who I want to become? If the answer is no, then begin to shift gently, patiently, but with commitment. The future you wish for is not waiting somewhere outside of you. It is being built right now in this moment by the choices you make. You are not powerless. You are not too late. You are not broken. You are simply in the process. Trust that process. Stay with it, even when it is difficult. Especially when it is difficult. There will be days when you want to stop. Days when the weight feels heavy. But on those days, remember, even the strongest mountain is shaped by soft rain. Even the brightest fire begins with a single spark. What matters is that you do not give up, that you return, that you breathe, that you step forward, however slowly. Because with every breath taken in awareness, every act grounded in discipline, with every choice aligned with your values, you are transforming. You are dissolving the inner enemies. You are building mastery from within. And so walk your path, not to prove anything, not to compete with anyone, but to fulfill the quiet promise you made to yourself that you will keep showing up, that you will keep growing, and that you will not turn away from the life you are capable of living. The world may not notice these efforts, but you will. And in the silence of that noticing, you will find something rare and precious: peace, presence, and power. Not the power to control others, but the power to master yourself. And in that mastery, you will find true freedom. The floor beneath you is covered in broken glass. How can you run freely across it? You would hesitate. You would bleed. Every step would remind you of the pain still lying there. The same is true of your mind. Your past remains broken and scattered. How can your present be whole? How can your future be free? Before you move forward, you must clean. This is not a punishment. This is not weakness. This is discipline. To look at what has been honestly. To observe, not judge. Where the pain still lives. Where the memory still grips you. And then to begin the work of letting go, of clearing, of freeing yourself. Without this cleaning, you may build new habits, but they rest on a cracked foundation. You may chase strength, but it is built on emotional tension. You may pursue peace, but your mind will remain noisy. To be truly strong, you must be clean inside. Many people believe that to let go of the past is to forget it. That is not correct. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It means removing the past's control over your current behavior. It means that when you speak, you are speaking from this moment, not from fear learned years ago. When you act, you are responding to what is, not reacting to what was. This requires awareness, deep awareness. To clean your inner world, you must first see it. You must become still enough to notice your patterns. You must become honest enough to say, this emotion I carry, it is old. This fear I have, it was planted long ago. This anger, it is not about now. This awareness is a type of meditation, a type of strength, facing your own mind instead of running from it. Yes, there will be discomfort. Cleaning is rarely comfortable. But discomfort is not the enemy. Avoidance is. Avoidance creates shadows, and shadows grow when we do not look. Mental toughness is not just discipline in action. It is clarity in thought. It is peace within chaos. It is the ability to move forward without dragging 10 invisible chains behind you. If you want that kind of power, you must earn it by releasing the weight. Some people carry memories like armor. They say, pain made me strong. That is only partially true. Pain can teach. But if pain becomes identity, then strength becomes illusion. You are not your pain. You are the one who survived it. And now you must decide, do you want to continue dragging it, or will you clean it from your path? Your journey will test you. Your vision will demand sacrifices. And if your inner world is cluttered with regret, with anger, with unprocessed loss, you will hesitate. You will sabotage yourself. You will return to old cycles without even knowing why. So make this part of your training, inner cleaning. Sit with yourself, what you've buried. Write, reflect, breathe into the discomfort, and then let it pass like clouds in the sky. You do not need to hold every storm that once rained on you. You cannot move with speed if your hands are full of the past. You cannot rise if your mind is chained to what was. And you cannot build a future with power if you're still questioning your worth based on old wounds. So begin. Clean your past, not because it was wrong, but because you are ready to grow beyond it. Clean your past, not to erase what happened, but to clear the space for what can happen. Clean your past, not for anyone else, but because you are finally ready to move forward. The floor beneath you is covered in broken glass. You will not walk freely. You will walk slowly, carefully. Every step becomes painful. And if you are not careful, you will bleed. Is how many people live? Not physically, but mentally. Their inner path is full of old wounds, shattered moments, regrets they never resolved. So even when they try to move forward, it hurts. They hesitate, stop, not because they cannot walk, but because they never cleared the path. This is the reason why cleaning your past is necessary, not optional. Not spiritual decoration, necessary. Disciplined life is not only one of physical action or visible control. A disciplined life begins inside. And to be truly disciplined, you must be clear. You must be unburdened. You must carry only what serves your path forward, not what anchors you to the past. Many people hold tightly to their history. They repeat the same stories over and over. This happened to me. This person hurt me. I failed before. I was abandoned. I was overlooked. They think they are simply remembering, but they are doing something more dangerous. They are repeating the past in the present. They are reliving it each day and calling it truth. But is it truth? Or is it just memory? A past event can teach. A memory can remind. But when it begins to limit, to define, to imprison, then it becomes a weight. And a true practitioner of the path cannot carry excess weight, not in the mind, not in the heart. The question is not whether something happened. The question is whether you are still letting it shape how you move, how you speak, how you react today. That is the difference between awareness and attachment. You can be aware of your past without being trapped by it. There is no strength in denial, not about pretending it never hurt. It is about having the courage to face it and then clean it. The emotional dust, the mental confusion, the silent anger, fear that lives in the background of your decisions. These are things to observe, to work with, not to ignore. Cleaning your past is like preparing a room for meditation. If the space is full of clutter, noise, distractions, how can you be still? How can you find peace? You must first clear the space, remove what does not belong, create stillness, and only then can clarity arise. Your mind is no different. Clarity is the root of strength. It is not a loud strength. It is not showy. It is the kind of strength that cannot be shaken because it is not built on reactions. It is built on awareness, and awareness is born from quiet observation, not judgment, but honest looking. So how do you clean the past? You begin by slowing down, by creating space. You sit with yourself, not the outer self, but the inner one. You breathe, you feel, you allow the discomfort to rise. You do not run from it, you do not label it, you witness it, you listen. Then you begin to understand, pain I've been carrying. It is old. This anger, it belongs to a younger version of me. This fear, it came from a place of confusion. I no longer need it. Letting go is not forgetting. Releasing the grip, it is choosing not to let yesterday control the decisions of today. It is allowing the past to rest in the past, where it belongs. Some will say, but I cannot forget. Good. You are not meant to forget. You are meant to integrate, to learn, to grow, but not to be haunted. So you clean, not once, but often. Like training the body, cleaning the mind must be done with consistency, care, with commitment. Only then can you move freely. Only then can your actions reflect your current wisdom, not your former wounds. Freedom begins when the past no longer dictates the present. And the first step toward that freedom is this: clean your path, clean your mind, clean your past, not for anyone else, but for the journey ahead. Many believe that letting go of the past means forgetting what happened. But to forget is not the goal. To let go is to release the grip, to remember without becoming trapped, see clearly without becoming overwhelmed. The past is part of you, but it is not all of you. If you mistake your past for your identity, then you lock yourself in a version of yourself that no longer exists. What happened may not have been your choice, but continuing to carry it is. Strength is not about holding everything in. It is not about pushing pain deeper into the mind and pretending it has disappeared. True strength is the ability to turn inward with patience and precision, to observe where the pain lies, to face it with stillness, not force, and then slowly to remove the residue, like dirt from a blade, carefully cleaned, not ignored. This is the training, not just movement of the body, but purification of the mind. A clean mind is a powerful mind. A mind that is not clouded by judgment, bitterness, or fear can see clearly, respond wisely, and act without hesitation. If you want that clarity, you must make space for it. And you cannot do that if your inner world is crowded with what should have been let go long ago. Some people build their entire personality around the pain they've experienced, speak as if they are still living in the moment it happened. They respond to new situations with old emotions. They avoid challenges not because the challenge is too great, but because their mind is still tied to an old failure, an old shame. This is not living. This is repeating. Life is a forward movement. But pain that is not understood, not cleaned, becomes a loop. You walk in circles, thinking you are progressing, but you are only recreating the same experience with new faces and different settings. Letting go is not weakness. It is the ultimate discipline. Requires you to stand in front of your past without hiding. It asks for truth. It demands stillness. And most of all, it requires self-honesty. You must be willing to ask yourself, why do I continue to hold this pain? What part of me benefits from it? Am I afraid of who I would be without it? Sometimes, holding on gives us a false sense of identity. We say, pain made me who I am. But strength does not come from pain itself. Strength comes from transformation. The fire does not make the sword. The shaping, the cooling, the refining, that is what gives the blade its form. Pain may begin the journey, but discipline and understanding must finish it. When you begin the process of inner cleaning, you must understand that emotions may return, thoughts will rise, memories may resurface. This is not failure. This is part of the process. Just as a room becomes dusty over time, the mind must be cleaned again and again. Meditation is not a one-time solution. Reflection is not a single act. These are practices. They become part of your way of life. To move forward, you must decide what you are willing to leave behind. And sometimes you must forgive, not because others deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Forgiveness is a form of release. It does not erase the past, simply removes its weight from your shoulders. If you do not clean, the weight grows heavier. Slowly, quietly, it builds without warning. And one day when you try to run forward, you will wonder why your body feels so tired, why your spirit feels stuck. You will not realize that you are carrying not one day of struggle, but 10 years of unresolved emotion. That is why this work is urgent, not someday, now. Freedom is not found in distant places. It begins within. It begins when the chains of the past no longer rattle in your mind. It begins when your breath is no longer tight from old wounds. Begins when your eyes are no longer clouded by old images. So take the time, do the work, sit with yourself, clean with care. And when the mind is clear, when the spirit is light, every step forward becomes powerful, because now you are finally walking without dragging the past behind you. Mental toughness is often misunderstood. Not about gritting your teeth and suppressing your feelings. It is not about pretending nothing affects you. True mental toughness is quiet. It is rooted in clarity. It does not come from pushing pain away, but from understanding where it lives and why it exists. A strong mind is not a closed one. It is an open one that has been cleansed of confusion, illusions, and emotional baggage. And to reach that level of strength, you must be willing to clean. Emotional clarity is not a luxury. It is a necessity. If you cannot see the source of your reactions, then your actions will be scattered. You may look disciplined on the surface, but inside you are at war. You may appear calm, but your decisions are driven by old wounds and hidden fears. You may even succeed in the eyes of the world, but inside you feel empty. Because the victories you collect mean nothing if they are only attempts to prove something to the past. When you begin to clean your inner world, you realize that many of your habits, your thoughts, even your goals are not truly yours. They were born from experiences that were never fully processed. A rejection that made you chase approval, a failure that made you fear trying, a betrayal that made you stop trusting. These are not signs of weakness. They are signs of being human. If you don't bring them into the light, they control you from the shadows. This is why internal work is essential. It is not enough to control the body if the mind is untrained. And it is not enough to train the mind if the heart is still heavy. When your emotions are unresolved, they leak into everything. Into your words, your choices, your relationships. You may think you are moving forward, but you are still reacting. You are not choosing from freedom. You are responding from old programming. So you must stop and look inside. Not to punish yourself, not to relieve pain, but to recognize what is still active. A disciplined mind is like a clear lake. When the surface is calm, you can see the bottom. You understand what lies beneath. The surface is stirred with turmoil, you see only distortion. The first step to that calm surface is cleaning, not through avoidance, but through observation. Many resist this process because it is uncomfortable. But discomfort is not something to fear. It is the beginning of transformation. When you sit with the feelings you used to run from, you begin to reclaim your power. You begin to realize that these emotions are not enemies, they are messengers. They are showing you where you still need healing. They are revealing where your strength is still growing. If you avoid these messages, you remain stuck. If you confront them with awareness, you grow. And growth is not sudden. It happens quietly in the space between reaction and reflection. In the moments when you choose not to respond with old pain, but to pause, breathe, and act from a deeper place. You may ask, what does cleaning look like in practice? Time spent alone, not in loneliness, but in stillness. It is writing down what weighs on you. It is speaking your truth, not for sympathy, but for clarity. It is meditating not to escape, but to observe. Is removing distractions so you can finally hear your own mind without interruption. And above all, it is patience. Because deep cleaning does not happen overnight. It takes time, discipline, honesty, practice. There are no shortcuts. You cannot fake inner peace. You cannot pretend your past is resolved if it still controls your choices. The more you avoid, the more it builds. The more you face, the more you free. You are not here just to repeat your story. You are here to evolve, and evolution requires release. You cannot grow into your future while gripping your past. You must open your hands. You must be willing to let go, not because the past was meaningless, but because the future deserves your full attention. Mental toughness is not born from struggle alone. It is forged through clarity, through stillness, through the courage to clean what others avoid. And when you do this, you will find a peace that no failure, no memory, no fear can shake. This is the true power. Quiet, pure, free from weight, free to move forward. Letting go of the past is not forgetting what happened. It is not pretending that certain moments didn't shape you. About reaching the place where those moments no longer control your direction, no longer write your script. It is about learning to live from the present moment, not as an escape, but as the only place from which true power can emerge. The past can inform you, but it should never define you. Often, people say, I am this way because of what I went through. But if you look closer, you will see that it is not the event itself that shaped them. It is their interpretation of it, their reaction to it, and their choice to carry it forward long after the moment has passed. You can go through a storm and still come out clean. You can be struck down and still rise free. The key is whether you choose to carry what happened or to extract the lesson and leave the pain. Carrying the past is like carrying stones in your robe. One by one, they weigh you down. And at some point, you start to believe the heaviness is just part of who you are. But it's not something you are carrying. And what is carried can be released, if you are willing. But release does not begin by force. It begins by awareness. The discipline of presence is to sit with your inner world and ask yourself, what am I holding on to? What pain have I not yet processed? What memory do I revisit in silence when no one is watching? And more importantly, why? Most people never ask. They keep walking, hoping that time alone will dissolve the pain. But time does not heal what you refuse to face. Time only covers it like dust on a mirror. The reflection is still distorted until you wipe it clean. And that cleaning requires courage, not strength in the way most people think. Grit, endurance, pride. No, this strength is quieter. The courage to be still, to see, to feel, and not run away. True healing begins when you stop trying to fix the surface and start understanding the root. Why do you react this way? Your heart close in certain moments? Why do certain words or faces or silences trigger you? There is something there, something that has not yet been dissolved, and you cannot dissolve what you do not first acknowledge. So instead of filling your life with distractions, with constant movement, dare to be still. Dare to slow down enough to feel your inner world, to listen to it like a master listens to the breath, not to control it, but to become one with it. Listen to your emotional breath. Listen to your mental breath. Listen to what you've buried. And then, little by little, begin to let go. Not by force, but by clarity. When you understand the true source of your pain, you will no longer need to defend it. You will no longer need to retell it. You will begin to outgrow it. Because you finally see it served its purpose. But it does not belong with you anymore. This is the freedom people seek in external things. Achievement, recognition, even control. But none of that brings peace if the inner world is chaotic. inner order brings peace. And order begins with cleanliness, a clean mind, a clean heart, a clean intention. When you are clean inside, actions flow from stillness. Your strength becomes gentle. Your presence becomes calming. Not because life is easy, but because you are no longer at war with what has already passed. You cannot change the past, but you can stop it from changing you. You can stop repeating it. You can stop letting it filter your decisions, shape your relationships, cloud your joy. But only if you clean. So begin. Begin not by forgetting, but by accepting. Not by denying, but by understanding. Not by reacting, but by breathing. Make space. Remove what is no longer true. Keep only what serves your highest path. You will see beneath the dust, beneath the old stories and wounds, there is something still untouched. Something whole. Something waiting. That is you. And that is who you were always meant to become. You want to move forward in life, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You must be willing to look backward, not to live there, but to understand what is still holding you. Your past, if left unexamined, becomes a weight you carry into every room, every relationship, every opportunity. But when you face it, clean it, and release it, same past becomes the ground beneath your wisdom. It becomes not a prison, but a teacher. Not a wound, but a scar. A reminder that healing is possible and that growth is a choice. This journey is not easy, is not fast. It does not happen in a single day or in a single meditation. But it is worth it, and it begins with a single decision to stop running from yourself, to stop hiding behind distraction, stop living only on the surface, and instead to sit with yourself, to listen, to feel, to observe. You may feel resistance. That is natural. The mind has grown used to its patterns. Discipline is not about comfort. Discipline is choosing the path of truth even when it is difficult. And the truth is, your life is waiting for you. Your potential, your clarity, your inner peace, they are not in the future. They are underneath the layers of what you have not yet cleaned. If you do not do this work, no matter what you build outside, you will feel unrest inside. The noise is not out there. It is in here. And until you become still, until you begin to clear what you've buried, you will not hear the guidance of your own life. You will move fast, but in circles. You will speak often, but without depth. You will appear strong, but feel tired, and you will wonder why. But when you clean, everything changes. Your breath deepens. Your decisions simplify. Your words carry weight. Your presence softens. You stop needing to prove anything. You stop chasing healing from others. Because you have become the source. You have become the still point in a world that moves endlessly. Do not wait for life to slow down. It will not. Do not wait for the past to disappear. It will not. But you can change your relationship to both. You can learn to live now, not tied to yesterday and not fearful of tomorrow. You can learn to walk lightly, speak truthfully, and live with awareness. And that begins when you stop carrying what is no longer part of who you are becoming. This is not a grand performance. This is quiet mastery. To be at peace. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer controlled by what is not. To be free, not because you ran away, but because you cleaned the path you walk on. That is the discipline. That is the practice. And that is the power. The question is not whether you can do it. The question is whether you are willing to begin, willing to pause, willing to breathe, willing to listen to your own heart, even if it shakes. You are, then you are already walking the path. No one can clean your past for you. No one can carry your mind into stillness. That is your work. That is your responsibility. And when you embrace it fully, presence and patience, you will find something more valuable than motivation. You will find clarity. You will find peace. So start now, not because someone tells you to, but because your future is too important to be shaped by the dust of your past. Sit, reflect, clean, then rise and walk forward, not as a person shaped by pain, but as one who has mastered it. There comes a moment in life, you can feel it, not through noise, not through drama, but through silence. A subtle shift, a quiet inner resistance to what once felt normal. Conversations you used to enjoy now feel empty. The places you once sought comfort now feel too small. The people you surrounded yourself with begin to echo an outdated rhythm you no longer move to. This is not arrogance, is not rebellion. This is growth. And the greatest transformations rarely begin with explosions. They begin with whispers. A tension not on the outside, but within. You begin to notice your reactions change. Same situations arise, but something inside you no longer plays along. Your responses become calmer, your patience grows deeper, and your urgency for validation begins to fade. This is not a loss, it is a return. A return to yourself, a version of you that you may not fully recognize yet, but one that feels more real than anything you've been taught to be. Outgrowing your old self is not a betrayal. It is a natural unfolding. As the tree must shed its bark to grow stronger, you too must shed identities, habits, and attachments that once served you, but now limit you. But understand this growth does not always feel good. In fact, it often feels lonely, because the process of becoming demands solitude. It demands that you leave behind the noise long enough to hear your own truth, not the one the world gave you, the one that lives underneath it all, the one that has always been calling you, even when you weren't ready to listen. And now you are beginning to listen. You are beginning to notice the signals. Small, but powerful. Not always dramatic, but always meaningful. Signals are not just signs of change. They are confirmations that you are awakening. That the old story is no longer yours. That your spirit, your mind, and your discipline are aligning in a way that the old you cannot follow. Not a matter of proving yourself anymore. It is a matter of protecting your peace, of honoring your time, of saying no without guilt, of choosing solitude over superficial noise. These shifts are not just preferences. They are signals. And when you understand them, you no longer question the path. You walk it with clarity. This journey is not about becoming better than others. It is about becoming whole within yourself, not about escaping the past. It is about outgrowing the parts of you that were never yours to carry in the first place. Expectations, roles, masks. You begin to set them down. Not in anger, but in understanding. Not in rebellion, but in alignment. And as you walk, you will lose some things. Relationships may fade. Old desires may dissolve. But what remains will be real, solid, clear. You do not need to be loud about this change. True growth does not need to announce itself. It is seen in your energy, in your silence, in your decisions, in your refusal to engage in what once drained you. And if you are noticing these subtle changes in your life, then understand you are not confused, you are evolving. You are not lost. You are simply stepping into space that the old you feared to enter. This speech will guide you through 6 signals, 6 inner confirmations that you've outgrown the old you. Not to inflate your ego, but to anchor your path. Not to celebrate what you've left behind, but to clarify what you're walking toward. Because when you recognize these signals, you stop looking for permission. You stop waiting for the world to understand you, and you begin walking forward. Not because everything is perfect, but because you've seen too much, felt too much, and grown too much to turn back now. So if something within you has been whispering, if you felt a shift but haven't named it, if you've been pulled inward without knowing why, listen closely. These are the signs, and they're not just signs that you're changing. They are proof that you're finally becoming who you were always meant to be. First signal that you've outgrown the old version of yourself is that you begin to lose interest in things that once defined your comfort zone. What used to excite you, pull your attention, or feel important no longer carries the same energy. it's not because you are numb or indifferent. It's because your inner world is shifting, and what used to resonate with you now feels too small for the space you've grown into. This can feel unsettling. You may ask yourself, why am I not interested anymore? Why does this feel boring now? What changed? The answer is simple: you changed. Your values are evolving. Your awareness is expanding. Your perception is no longer aligned with the habits, environments, and conversations that once kept you engaged. This is the natural unfolding of growth. As your consciousness develops, the mind begins to crave nourishment, not distraction. And most of what the old version of you used to chase was simply distraction in disguise. Endless scrolling, empty conversations, seeking approval, staying busy without purpose. These behaviors were once soothing, but now they feel hollow. You begin to sense when your energy is being drained, and you lose tolerance for wasting it. The mind, once addicted to stimulation, starts craving depth. You no longer wish to talk just to fill the silence. You prefer silence to surface level words. You no longer feel the need to be everywhere with everyone. You would rather be in one place, fully present, than in many places half aware. You are no longer trying to keep up. You are trying to slow down and tune in. And this is where confusion can arise, because as your interests shift, the world around you may not understand. Friends may question why you've changed. People may call you distant, quiet, different. But they do not see that your withdrawal is not a retreat. It is a refinement. You are no longer investing energy where it is not respected. You are no longer offering your time without purpose. This shift is not about rejection. It is about realignment. What begins to matter most to you now is truth, not entertainment, not validation, not comfort, truth. And truth often reveals itself in stillness. So you seek stillness. You create space in your life where you can hear your own thoughts, observe your patterns, and sit with what is real. In that space, something within you strengthens. You start noticing what no longer fits, not because someone told you, but because you feel it. You may find yourself stepping away from certain environments, not because they are wrong, but because you no longer belong to them. You may begin choosing solitude over noise, not out of loneliness, but because your soul now prefers peace to stimulation. You may no longer need to explain yourself. You realize that true understanding does not come from convincing others, but from embodying your change silently. This is the first signal disinterest in what no longer grows you. It can be subtle, a quiet pulling away, a silent refusal to engage. But it is powerful, because every time you choose not to go back into the old pattern, you are walking further into your new self. Every time you say no to what once kept you distracted, you are saying yes to your evolution. And this shift does not require permission. It does not need to be explained. It simply needs to be honored. You must learn to trust that your changing interests are not a problem. They are a signpost. They are your soul's way of saying, we are no longer here. We've moved on. In this phase, discomfort is normal. There will be gaps. Things will fall away before new things arrive. But in that space, you are not lost. You are in transition. Honor the transition. Stay in the gap without rushing to fill it. Let the old dissolve and trust that what's real will take its place. The key is to listen. When something that once mattered no longer calls to you, pause. Don't force yourself to return to it. Ask yourself, what is this change revealing? What part of me is growing, and what is it outgrowing? When you begin asking those questions, the disinterest turns into direction. The silence becomes insight. The confusion becomes clarity. You are not the same. You were not meant to be. And the first proof of your evolution is that the old world no longer feels like home. Not because you're ungrateful for where you've been, but because now you see where you're going. Second signal that you've outgrown the old you is a heightened sensitivity to energy. Specifically, a deeper awareness of how people, spaces, and conversations affect your inner state. Where once you could sit in environments filled with conflict, noise, gossip, or shallow distraction without noticing much, you now find that even brief exposure to these things disturbs your peace. It's not because you've become weak, because your system has become refined. Your spirit has become more precise in what it allows in. What used to be tolerable is no longer tolerable. Not because it changed, but because you did. You begin to feel the weight of unspoken tension. You pick up on dishonesty even when no words are said. You sense when people are acting out of fear, insecurity, or ego. You feel when someone's presence is nourishing and when it is draining. This is not judgment, it is clarity. It is a form of energetic intelligence. And once it activates, you can't turn it off. At first, this heightened sensitivity can be uncomfortable. It might make you question why certain relationships suddenly feel heavy, why conversations you used to enjoy now feel forced, or why certain environments trigger a sense of inner disharmony. The world hasn't changed, but your awareness has. You're no longer able to lie to yourself about what feels right and what doesn't. The noise you once silenced with distraction is now unmistakably loud. Signal often leads to an important realization. Not everyone can walk with you into your next chapter. Not because they are bad, not because they need to be cut off, but because the resonance has changed. You begin to notice when people are speaking from wounds instead of wisdom, when they seek connection only through complaining, gossip, or comparison. You begin to feel how your body contracts in certain rooms and softens in others. And you learn to trust that response, not as a judgment, but as a compass. This kind of sensitivity is not emotional fragility. It is the maturation of your energetic boundaries. Trained yourself to protect your peace not with force, but with presence. And that means sometimes stepping away, not to isolate yourself, but to recalibrate. You choose to no longer engage in conversations that shrink you. You no longer pretend to be interested in things that disturb your focus. You're not being rude. You're being responsible with your energy. This is where silence becomes your ally. You realize you don't need to explain every decision. You don't need to justify why something doesn't feel right anymore. You simply honor the feeling. You bow to it. Because you understand now that your peace is not something you can sacrifice for the comfort of others. And sometimes this means releasing what was once familiar. It may mean walking away from friendships that no longer feel aligned. It may mean spending more time alone, choosing solitude over superficial connection. But you are not lonely. You are becoming selective. You are curating your environment with care because you finally recognize how sacred your attention is. There will be moments where your clarity makes others uncomfortable. They may say you've changed, that you're distant. You've become too serious. But deep inside, you know you're not creating distance out of pride. You're creating space for clarity. You are not rejecting anyone. You are returning to yourself. Shift will ask you to trust yourself more deeply than ever. Because while others may not understand your silence, your stillness, or your refusal to participate in chaos, you understand. And that's enough. You no longer look for validation in shared dysfunction. You no longer bend yourself to fit into spaces you've outgrown. You begin to value quality over quantity. In people, in conversations, in time. You realize that even one moment of alignment is more nourishing than hours of empty noise. And so you protect that alignment. You become less reactive, more intentional. You no longer fight to be heard. You choose to listen. Through listening, you know where to stay and where to gently walk away. This signal marks a profound inner shift from tolerance to discernment. You no longer tolerate what drains you simply because it is familiar. You no longer stay just to avoid discomfort. You trust the discomfort. You trust the inner contraction. You trust the pull away, because it is always followed by a deeper return. You are not here to prove your growth to anyone. You are here to honor it. And if something no longer feels right, it's not a failure. It's a signal. It's the sound of your soul choosing harmony over history, peace over pressure, presence over performance. And that choice, that quiet, private decision, is what makes the new you real. The third signal that you've outgrown the old you is that your desire for external validation begins to dissolve. Not that you no longer care about others, it's that you no longer seek yourself in them. Approval used to feel like oxygen. Praise once felt necessary for self-worth. You used to move according to how you were perceived. But now, a quiet detachment forming, a sense that your path is no longer up for negotiation. You are beginning to lead yourself from within. This shift does not happen through pride. It happens through pain, through the realization that no amount of applause can fill the silence left by self-neglect. There comes a point when chasing approval becomes exhausting, and in that fatigue, something powerful is born. The need to stop performing and start aligning. You begin to act, speak, and live, not for the sake of recognition, but because it is what feels right, regardless of who is watching. You begin to understand that true self-respect cannot be outsourced, that when your value is determined by how others respond to you, you will forever be enslaved to their opinions. Realization breaks a chain that may have quietly held you for years. At first, it feels strange. You notice yourself holding back from explaining your decisions. You begin to walk away from conversations where your truth doesn't fit. You stop trying to make everyone understand you. And though part of you still wants to be liked, a deeper part of you knows that being liked is not the same as being true. You used to seek feedback to feel safe. Now you seek silence to feel clear. You used to post, share, speak, or move with the thought, will they see me? Now the question has changed. It's not, will they see me? It's, do I see myself clearly in this? And if the answer is no, you adjust. You no longer force alignment with others just to avoid standing alone. This change doesn't mean arrogance. It means ownership. You own your path. You own your voice. You accept the solitude that sometimes comes with that ownership. In that solitude, you find something stronger than popularity, peace. The old version of you may have needed others to reflect your value. The new you looks inwards. The old version of you waited to be told, you're enough. The new you already knows. This doesn't mean you reject connection. It means your connection is no longer desperate. It is no longer built on needing approval, but on shared resonance. Your self-worth no longer inflates or deflates based on someone's reaction. You become steady, quietly powerful. You no longer try to prove your worthiness by overgiving, over-explaining, or overextending. You give from presence, not performance, and people will notice. Some may admire the strength. Others may question the shift, but you will not shrink to be understood. You will not compromise clarity for comfort. You will walk your path, not to impress, but to express what is real within you. You'll start seeing how often people move based on who is watching, how they live their entire lives reacting to expectation. You'll have compassion for this, but you won't join it. You'll recognize that you were once caught in that same pattern. But now you have chosen something different. You have chosen self-leadership. And this is not easy, because it means letting go of the need to explain your evolution. It means being okay when others don't get it. It means sitting with the discomfort of disappointing people who only love the old version of you. It is in this very discomfort that you grow roots. You learn to stand tall without needing to be held up. You stop chasing applause. You start cultivating alignment. You stop reacting to opinions. You start listening to intuition. You stop trying to be everything for everyone. You start becoming exactly what you were meant to be. This signal is not loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need attention. It just shows up in how you carry yourself, in how you say no without guilt, in how you speak less but with more weight, in how your presence begins to feel more grounded, even in silence. And when you reach this point, you realize something freeing, that validation is a moving target, but truth is still. And you are learning to live still, to lead from that stillness, to choose what's true over what's popular. And that choice is the surest sign that the old you, the one who needed to be seen in order to feel real, has been left behind, not with anger, not with resentment, but with quiet gratitude, because that version of you got you here. You are now ready for more. The fourth signal that you've outgrown the old version of yourself is that you begin choosing long-term alignment over short-term comfort. You no longer move according to urgency or impulse. You pause, you evaluate, you ask deeper questions. The old you may have been easily pulled by what felt good in the moment, a distraction, a temporary fix, a shortcut, or the temptation to postpone what truly matters. But now, a different voice inside you speaks, one that is quieter but stronger, one that reminds you what brings ease now often brings regret later, and what requires discipline now leads to freedom. This shift doesn't happen suddenly, unfolds as you begin noticing the consequences of your choices. You become more aware of how the small decisions you once dismissed have shaped the quality of your life, how repeatedly choosing comfort over clarity only delayed your growth. And through this realization, a quiet seriousness begins to take root inside you. Not a harsh pressure, but a quiet sense of responsibility. You begin to understand that your life is not random. It is built choice by choice, habit by habit, day by day. When you begin to choose alignment, your relationship with time changes. You no longer ask, what feels good right now? You ask, will this nourish my future self? You don't just think about what a decision brings. You consider what it costs. You start to look further. You develop the discipline to sit in temporary discomfort if it means staying true to your deeper values. You begin to respect what is difficult when it's necessary, and that means your priorities begin to shift. You might spend less time seeking distraction and more time building inner clarity. You start to appreciate simplicity. You begin to prioritize structure, discipline, stillness, and daily rituals. Not because someone told you to, but because you felt the cost of inconsistency. You know what it's like to drift, to delay, to deny your own path. And now you choose not to do it anymore. This shift will challenge you. The world often rewards urgency and comfort. It tells you to chase what's shiny, to indulge now and worry later. But when you've outgrown the old version of yourself, those rewards no longer feel satisfying. They feel hollow. You begin to crave something more enduring, a life that is not just exciting in moments, but meaningful in its direction. So you stop rushing into decisions. You stop entertaining people and places that pull you off your path. You say no, not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. You recognize the cost of scattering your energy. You know that alignment cannot survive where there is constant compromise. And with that understanding, a calm maturity begins to emerge. You learn to delay gratification not out of fear, but out of purpose. You begin to track your habits, not with obsession, but with awareness. You notice which choices bring clarity and which create confusion. You begin to treat your time as sacred, not because you're in a hurry, but because you know what's at stake when you live without intention. And slowly, your life becomes quieter, but more powerful, more focused, more grounded. Start to walk slower, but with more certainty. You no longer seek momentum in chaos. You find it in consistency. You understand now that mastery is not about intensity, but about repetition. That transformation is not about massive leaps, but about invisible commitments kept day after day. This signal isn't dramatic. It's steady. It's seen in how you wake, how you move, how you choose to say no to old temptations. Seen in your posture when no one is watching. In your patience when things don't go as planned. In your decision to return to what matters, even when it's uncomfortable. The old version of you may have loved intensity. The new version respects discipline. The old you wanted fast results. The new you wants lasting results. The old you followed feelings. The new you follows truth. You are not perfect, but you are consistent. You are not rigid. You are rooted. You are not finished, but you are focused. And that quiet focus is what separates who you are from who you're becoming. So when you notice yourself choosing structure over chaos, peace over excitement, clarity over distraction, know this: you're not boring. You're becoming unshakable. You're not slow. You're becoming sustainable. You're not disconnected. You're deeply aligned. Because the one who walks in alignment may walk alone for a while, but never walks in circles. And if you've started choosing the long road, the quiet road, the road without shortcuts, you've already left the old version of yourself behind, not with fanfare, but with grace. Growth is not always loud, more often subtle, quiet. It doesn't always show up in dramatic breakthroughs or visible achievements. Sometimes it reveals itself in what no longer resonates, in the silence you now value, in the conversations you no longer chase, in the decisions you make without needing to explain them. You begin this journey not with answers, but with questions. Why don't I feel the same anymore? Why does this space feel too small? Why do I crave silence more than stimulation? Questions aren't signs of confusion. They are signals of awakening. Signals that something within you is shifting, evolving, expanding. You are not losing yourself. You are shedding layers that were never truly you. First signal appears when your interests change. What once excited you now feels distant. The noise you used to crave becomes irritating. You no longer reach for distractions that used to comfort you. Your mind has grown hungry for depth, for truth, for alignment. This shift may not be understood by others, but it doesn't need to be. You no longer belong to your past preferences. You've outgrown them, and that's enough. Comes the second signal, an increased sensitivity to energy. You can no longer tolerate environments or people who drain your spirit. You feel it in your body, in your breath. You know when something doesn't sit right, and you respect that knowing. You create space, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. You've realized that your peace is not negotiable, that protecting your energy is a form of wisdom, not isolation. The third signal is even quieter, but even more powerful. Your need for validation dissolves. The old you lived for approval, always seeking reflection from others to feel worthy. But now your worth is no longer outsourced. It lives within. You don't perform to be seen. You don't explain to be understood. You don't chase recognition. You walk in truth. You act in silence. You stand firm, not because of applause, but because you know who you are without it. And finally, you begin choosing long-term alignment over short-term comfort. You are no longer seduced by temporary ease. You see the cost of compromise. You choose discipline over distraction. You walk away from the easy path and begin walking the true path, slowly, steadily, without needing to rush. Because you have come to understand the right path is not the one that feels good right now, the one that honors who you are becoming. These signals are not steps on a checklist. They are shifts in your internal compass. Together, they point to one truth you've a silent war happening inside you every single day. A war between your higher self and your conditioned mind. A war between what you know you are capable of and what your brain tells you is too hard, too risky, too uncertain. War cannot be seen. It leaves no physical scars. But it determines everything: your decisions, your reactions, your energy, your future. Most people don't even realize this war is taking place. They wake up and immediately fall into patterns. Same thoughts, same emotions, same reactions. They believe they are in control, but they are not. They are being lived by their brain, pulled by unconscious impulses, steered by past experiences, moved by whatever emotion happens to arise. And they call this life. But there is another way to live. One that does not begin with information, but with awareness. One that does not require brilliance, but discipline. Because to control your brain is not about domination. It is about understanding. You cannot lead something you don't listen to. And you cannot silence something you haven't studied. So the first question is simple: are you in control of your brain? Or is it in control of you? Your brain is a tool, powerful, complex, capable of incredible things. Like any powerful tool, it is dangerous if left untrained. The brain does not care about your goals. It cares about survival. It does not seek greatness. It seeks comfort. It is not designed to make you fulfilled. Designed to keep you from risk, from change, from the unknown. This is why every time you try to step forward, your brain pulls you back. But understand this: your brain is not your enemy. It is your servant. Only when you train it, only when you take the time to observe it, to guide it, and to interrupt its automatic loops. Otherwise, it will run your life based on the past, not on possibility. To begin training the brain, you must first stop reacting to it. Just because a thought appears does not mean it is true. Just because a feeling arises does not mean it must be obeyed. Your brain will speak loudly and often. But you are not the voice. You are the one listening. This separation is the beginning of control. Start by observing the patterns. How does your brain respond when something unexpected happens? When you're under pressure? When you're bored? Moments are your training ground. Watch how quickly it searches for distraction. Watch how easily it creates stories of fear or resistance. Watch how it avoids discomfort every single time. Now you begin the real work, choosing something different. When the brain says, stop, you breathe. When it says, this is too hard, you move forward anyway. When it says, let's take the easy way, you pause and ask, is this the path of strength or of safety? You don't silence the brain, you challenge it. And over time it learns. Just like a muscle trained under resistance, the brain changes with repetition. Not through intensity, but through consistency. Every time you observe instead of react, you weaken the old pattern. Every time you act from awareness instead of emotion, you rewire the connection. This is not philosophy, it is biology. But it must be lived to be understood. You also learn to speak to your brain not as a victim of it, but as its master. You give it commands. You direct its focus. You set its rhythm. You choose the thoughts you feed it. Because every thought, every image, every word you repeat becomes instruction. Your brain does not care whether the command is helpful or harmful. It will follow what you repeat. So train it carefully. And remember this, you do not need to control your brain perfectly. You need only to control it consciously, to choose when to listen, when to challenge, when to rest, when to act. The brain will never stop speaking, but you don't have to follow every word. You can pause, you can breathe, you can lead. Controlling the brain is not about suppressing it. It is about organizing it, strengthening it, refining it, turning it from a restless machine into a disciplined servant. And that shift changes everything, because now your thoughts are no longer obstacles, they are tools. Your emotions are no longer rulers, they are signals. Your mind becomes your ally. That is when your life begins to move in alignment, not with habit, but with intention. So ask yourself once more who is in control right now, your training or your default. And know this, the brain will follow whatever you prove to it, not what you promise. Train it, use it, lead it, and it will take you further than motivation ever could. The first step in learning how to control your brain is to understand one truthy: you are not your thoughts. This seems simple, even obvious. But when truly grasped, it becomes a turning point in your life. Most people believe they are thinking, when in reality, they are being thought. A thought arises, and before they even realize it, they are inside of it, believing it, reacting to it, obeying it. You break this illusion. A thought is nothing more than a mental impulse. It may carry memory, it may carry judgment, it may carry fear or desire, but it is not reality. It is a representation, a signal. Your mind offering you something based on what it has experienced before. That's all. Just because it is loud doesn't mean it is right. Just because it feels familiar doesn't mean it is true. The brain will offer you thousands of thoughts every day. If you believe all of them, you will live as a servant to a tool that was meant to serve you. So you begin by watching. The first discipline is observation without reaction. Sit down, close your eyes, and allow the thoughts to come. Do not resist them. Do not follow them. Simply observe. Like clouds passing through the sky, you'll notice patterns. Certain thoughts repeat. Certain judgments arise quickly. Certain fears return without invitation. These are not coincidences. These are mental habits. And that's what they are, habits, not truths. A thought that says, I can't handle this, is not a prophecy, a reflection of an untrained pattern. But until you pause long enough to observe it, you will believe it. You will feel it. You will become it. You must create space between what arises in the mind and what you choose to do. Is the beginning of control. When you observe a thought and do not react, you weaken its power. When you do this repeatedly, the old pathways in the brain begin to lose strength. Your brain is plastic. It rewires based on what you pay attention to. When you stop feeding old thoughts with energy, they dissolve. When you respond instead with presence, new neural circuits are formed. This is not theory, it's structure. But the structure only shifts when your awareness becomes consistent. Now, most people make the mistake of trying to suppress thoughts. They want silence. They want immediate peace. That is not the way. The goal is not to stop thinking. The goal is to think consciously, to let thoughts come and go without giving them authority. You must think of your mind as a river. If you fall in, you are swept away. If you step back and observe from the bank, you can watch the flow without being caught in it. The more you practice this, the more you begin to see the nature of your mental chatter. Much of it is fear disguised as logic. Much of it is resistance masked as rationality. You begin to see how your brain protects you, not to empower you, but to keep you safe in the smallest version of yourself. It offers you comfort, familiarity, but never mastery. Mastery comes only when you begin to guide the mind, not follow it. So what do you do when a thought arises? First, pause, notice it, label it if necessary fear, judgment, distraction, memory. Then ask, is this thought useful? Is it true? It bring clarity or confusion? And most importantly, does this thought deserve my attention right now? You don't fight it. You simply choose. That power, to choose your response rather than be driven by mental momentum, is the foundation of brain control. It is not achieved by force, but by repetition. Every time you observe instead of react, you train your nervous system. Every time you challenge an unhelpful thought, you reclaim mental territory. Eventually, a shift occurs. You no longer feel like the victim of your brain. You begin to feel like the driver. You can let thoughts pass. You can respond with intention. You can return to presence. And the thoughts that once controlled your day, the doubts, the comparisons, the impulses, begin to dissolve. Not because they are gone, but because they no longer lead. And that is real power. The mind will continue to offer you thoughts. But now you choose which ones become your reality. You are no longer a passive listener. You are a deliberate sculptor, shaping your internal world thought, by breath. This is the first step in controlling your brain, learning not to obey every thought, but to meet it with calm awareness. To see it, but not become it. To hear it, but not believe it. To witness it, still act from clarity. Control begins with observation. And observation begins with stillness. From there, everything changes. Once you've learned to observe your thoughts without becoming them, next step in controlling your brain is learning how to give it direction. Because while awareness is the foundation, intention is the structure. Without it, the mind will drift. It will default to old patterns, repeating familiar scripts from the past. And those scripts, left unchallenged, become your future. So the second discipline is not just to observe your thoughts, but to command them. This does not mean forcing the mind into silence, nor does it mean repeating empty affirmations. It means understanding that the brain is a system, and like any system, it responds to instructions. Whatever you feed it consistently, it adapts to. If you feed it chaos, it becomes chaotic. If you feed it fear, it becomes defensive. But if you feed it structure, purpose, and clarity, it becomes your greatest ally. You train your brain by what you focus on, what you repeat, and what you tolerate. Thought you allow is an instruction. Each emotion you reinforce is a signal. Every day you're programming your mind, consciously or unconsciously. And once you realize this, you can no longer afford to be careless. You must speak to your brain as a leader speaks to their team, not with panic or weakness, but with calm clarity. You begin each day by setting the tone. Before the world has a chance to invade your mind, you plant your own thoughts. Not hopes, not reactions, but clear commands. What kind of energy do you want to carry? What kind of mindset must you hold? What kind of behavior will define you today? You do not wait for the mood to strike. You create it. Is the difference between living from reaction and living from design. The brain responds best to rhythm. So you build one. You create rituals, a breathing pattern in the morning, a mantra that roots you in presence, a habit of writing down the thoughts that serve your higher path. You begin repeating the thoughts you want to become automatic. not because they feel natural, but because they will become natural if you repeat them enough. At first, will feel awkward, unnatural, even false. But that is only because you are building new neural roads and the brain always prefers the well-worn path. It will resist. It will say, "Isn't you?" But that voice is not truth. It's just familiarity. You must keep building the new path anyway. And here's what makes this powerful. When you lead the mind with intention, you interrupt the old programs. You break the cycles of automatic anxiety. You stop rehearsing failure. You stop replaying the story that says you're not enough. You begin to train the mind to look for what is useful, not what is fearful. You guide it to focus on progress, not perfection. To stay grounded in presence, not scattered by distractions. Over time, the mind begins to follow. It begins to quiet down. It begins to trust your leadership. And the chaos that once controlled your day turns into silence, focus, precision. But even this takes vigilance, because the mind is like a child. It will test your limits. It will revert when left unsupervised. That's why you must become consistent, not harsh, not obsessed, just steady. Every time the brain offers a thought, ask, does this serve me? Does this move me forward? Does this align with who I want to become? If not, you replace it, not with fantasy, but with command. I can't handle this becomes, I will handle this, step by step. This always happens to me becomes, this time I choose to respond differently. I don't feel motivated becomes, I don't need motivation. I need discipline. You are not pretending. You are redirecting. You are taking the mind from autopilot to manual control. And that is the beginning of inner mastery. Soon, the brain learns what matters. It stops fighting every challenge. It stops magnifying every doubt. It becomes more focused, more stable, more aligned. And you begin to walk through life with a mind that works for you, not against you. This is what few people understand. Your brain does not decide who you are. You decide, and then train your brain to follow. Not once, but every day. Your identity is not fixed. It is formed by the thoughts you repeat, the emotions you allow, the actions you take. So speak to your brain with clarity. Guide it with discipline. Train it through repetition. And soon, you will no longer feel like you're at war with yourself. You will feel like you've come home to yourself. Calm, clear, and in command. That is how you lead your mind. That is how you shift from reaction to intention. And that is the next step in controlling your brain. Once you've begun to observe your thoughts and guide your mental direction, the next step in truly controlling your brain is teaching it to act, regardless of how it feels. Because while awareness brings insight and intention brings clarity, it is only action that brings transformation. Without it, the mind stays in thought. It builds castles in the air. It imagines the future, relives the past, and creates endless what-ifs. But nothing in the real world changes. This is where many people stop. They learn to reflect. They learn to visualize. They even learn to speak to themselves with strength. But when it's time to move, when it's time to make the difficult call, speak the uncomfortable truth, sit down to do the work, suddenly the brain resists. It gives you reasons. It gives you feelings. It gives you perfect timing that never arrives. Here is what must be understood. Your brain is not programmed for fulfillment. It is programmed for safety. It doesn't care about growth. It cares about familiarity. It wants to avoid discomfort. It seeks the path of least resistance. So when you decide to move in a new direction, it will not immediately support you. It will resist. And this resistance is not a sign to stop. It is a sign to begin. You only act when you feel ready. You are not in control of your brain. Your brain is still in control of you. Because readiness, as most understand it, is an illusion. You are not meant to wait for perfect emotion. You are meant to teach your brain that emotion does not rule action. Discipline does. The question then becomes, how do you move when the mind is resisting? The answer is, you shrink the moment. You stop negotiating. You don't wait for the ideal mood. You create a rule. When it's time to move, you move. Not with anxiety, not with hesitation, but with presence, even if it's just one step. Because the moment you act, even in a small way, You interrupt the mental loop. You disrupt the internal story. You give the brain new data. And that is how rewiring begins. Your brain learns not from what you think, but from what you do consistently. The next time your brain says, I'm too tired, take the first step anyway. The next time it says, this doesn't matter, remind yourself of the consequence of delay. The next time it says, not now, reply, now is exactly when. This is not aggression. It is not force. It is discipline. Discipline does not mean ignoring the mind. It means leading it. You acknowledge the emotion, but you do not let it drive. You see the resistance. You do not obey it. You move. And you do it again tomorrow and the day after. With time, your brain learns. It begins to associate movement not with fear, but with forward energy. It begins to feel safe in progress. And slowly, the resistance fades. Not because it disappears entirely, but because it knows who's in charge. Most people never reach this point. They think the presence of resistance means something is wrong. But it doesn't. It means the training is working. You are confronting the edge of your current self. You are stepping into the unknown. And your brain, doing its job, tries to protect you from it. But you don't need protection. You need movement. And movement is what builds trust, not just with others, but with yourself. Each time you do what you said you would do, even when you didn't feel like it, you build internal confidence. Prove to your mind that you can be relied on, that your values, not your moods, lead your life. This is how you shift from a scattered, reactive state to a focused, disciplined one. And this is also where peace comes from. Not the kind of peace that comes from sitting still, but the kind that comes from knowing you are not trapped by your impulses. That your feelings do not dictate your future. That you can act in alignment with your clarity, regardless of your mental noise. This is the path of internal strength, and it's built through action, small, daily focused. So stop waiting for the mind to feel perfect. Start teaching it to follow your will. Shrink the step, move anyway, and let your actions become your teaching. Over time, your brain will begin to understand this person moves when it's time to move. This person does not delay. This person does not wait for motivation. This person leads when your behavior aligns with your identity. That is when your thoughts, your choices, and your results all begin to mirror each other. Because you didn't just think differently, you lived differently. And now your brain follows, not out of fear, but out of respect. The final step in learning to control your brain is perhaps the most overlooked, yet the most powerful of all: repetition. Not the kind that comes from obsession or desperation, but the kind that is rooted in discipline, clarity, and trust. Because even after you have learned to observe your thoughts, direct your focus, take conscious action, none of it will last unless you return. Again and again. With consistency, with sincerity, with humility. This is where most people fail. Not because they are incapable, not because they are weak, because they confuse awareness with mastery. One moment of clarity and they believe they are changed. One good day of action and they assume the old patterns are gone. The brain is not changed by moments. It is changed by repetition. Your mind is not a switch to be flipped. It is a landscape to be cultivated. What you water grows. What you neglect fades. And so, you want lasting control over your brain, you must commit to daily training. Not dramatic, not loud, but quiet, steady, and non-negotiable. Repetition is what transforms insight into identity. Anyone can think clearly once. Anyone can act with discipline for a day. But only those who repeat the process, especially when it's difficult, create true change. You return to observation, not because you forgot how to observe, because the mind continues to move. New thoughts arise. Old fears return. Patterns you thought were gone resurface in subtle forms. And if you stop watching, they slip back in unnoticed. So you return. Not as a beginner, as a practitioner. You understand that the work never ends, and that's exactly why it works. You return to focus. The mind left alone wanders. It seeks comfort, distraction, and stories. But you do not punish it. You guide it. Every day, you choose what to feed it. You choose your words, your inputs, your attention. You guard your mental environment not as a prisoner, But as a gardener, protecting the ground in which your future will grow, you return to action. You don't just act when it's convenient. You act even when no one is watching. You act when it's cold, when it's late, when you're tired, when the brain starts bargaining. And in those moments, when you still follow through, you remind the mind who leads. These moments become your strength, not the big wins, but the repeated decisions that most will never see. And finally, you return to the breath. This is your anchor, your reset. When your mind becomes clouded again, when emotions rise, when fear whispers old stories, you return to the breath. One inhale, one exhale. This is not weakness. This is recalibration. The discipline of coming back home to stillness before the noise decides your next move. Through repetition, your brain stops resisting. It stops questioning every decision. It stops creating false urgency. It begins to trust, not because you convinced it, but because you proved it, through daily action, through inner consistency, through the kind of discipline that needs no audience. And what arises is not just control, but peace. Not a shallow peace built on silence, but a deep peace built on structure. You no longer fear your emotions because you know they don't own you. You no longer fear your thoughts because you know how to watch them. You no longer fear discomfort because you've trained yourself to act through it. The mind becomes clean, calm, clear, and in that state, decisions are simpler, energy is higher, focus is deeper, and life begins to reflect the inner clarity you've cultivated. But this clarity must be maintained. Just like the body must be nourished, just like strength must be trained, the mind must be returned to. Every day, even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's only one moment of conscious thought, you return, not because you are weak, but because you are serious. Control is not found in perfection. It is found in persistence. You may fall, you may drift, you may get caught in old patterns again. But the difference now is that you know the way back, and you take it. That is mastery. Not in never falling, but in never forgetting how to stand. So you return, again and again. And over time, your brain is no longer your opponent. It becomes your partner. It moves with you. It supports you. It becomes sharp, responsive, and disciplined. Not because of a breakthrough, but because of repetition. Because you chose every single day to return to what matters, even when it was hard, even when no one else did. That is how you control your brain. And that is how your life begins to reflect the strength you've cultivated in silence. In the end, true strength of a person is not in how loud they speak, how fast they run, or how much they know. It is in how quietly and consistently they lead their own mind, in the space between thought and action, where emotion rises and discipline responds. It is in the space where most people give in, but a few choose to remain still, to remain rooted, and to remain committed to their path. Control your brain is not to dominate it by force. It is not to silence all doubt or destroy every weakness. It is to become the silent observer of its chaos without reacting. It is to listen without obeying. It is to lead it firmly, without violence, with clarity, not with noise, with presence, not with panic. You begin with observation, because you cannot change what you do not see. You do not blame the mind for wandering, fearing, or resisting. You simply notice. And in that noticing, you break the illusion that you are your thoughts. You create space. And in that space, choice becomes possible. The moment you step back and see your own mind clearly, you have taken your first step toward control. Then you give it direction. The mind is a follower. It will follow whatever you feed it consistently. So you must feed it consciously. You create intention. You set the tone. You interrupt old patterns. You replace the thoughts that weaken you with thoughts that serve you. You don't wait for motivation. You create it. Not through force, but through design. You guide the brain until it learns to trust your leadership. But the real test comes in motion. Because thoughts mean little without action. You train your brain to obey your higher self by moving forward. Even when it resists, you teach it that emotion is not the commander. Discipline is. You stop negotiating with hesitation. You shrink the step. You move anyway. And through movement, your brain learns to follow your clarity instead of your comfort. Still, One of this will last without repetition. True control is not found in one powerful moment. It is found in returning. Day after day, breath after breath, you don't train once and stop. You come back. Not because you're broken, but because you are building. You come back to awareness. You come back to action. You come back to the breath. And through this quiet, persistent returning, your brain begins to understand that you are not going away. Is who you are now. You lead yourself. And that is the highest form of power. In a world of distraction, you are focused. In a world of reaction, you are still. In a world of doubt, you walk with clarity. In a world that wants comfort, you choose the hard path, not for pain, but for purpose. And when others ask you how you changed, what the secret was, you won't need to shout it, because the strength of your presence will answer for you. It wasn't magic. It wasn't motivation. It was awareness. Intention. Action. Repetition. It was showing up when you didn't feel like it. It was sitting still when the noise screamed. It was choosing clarity over chaos. And it was doing this not once, but every day. This is how you control your brain. This is how you free yourself. Not by overpowering your thoughts, by leading them. Not by waiting to feel ready, but by moving with purpose. Not by being perfect, but by being consistent. So return again and again. Observe. Act. Repeat. Not for the world, for yourself. The day you stop waiting to be in control and start training yourself to be in control is the day your life begins to follow your will, not your wounds. And that is the quiet power no one can give you and no one can take away. There comes a moment in life, not marked by the ticking of a clock or the rising of the sun, where something inside you breaks. Not your spirit, but your tolerance. Your tolerance for disrespect. Your tolerance for being unseen. Your tolerance for betraying yourself just to be accepted by others. That is the beginning of your self-respect. Self-respect is not earned from the world. It is declared from within. It is the fire that says, no more. No more shrinking to fit places I've outgrown. No more pretending to be less so others feel more. No more tolerating a life that insults my soul. That declaration, silent but powerful, is how you command self-respect instantly. And it does not begin with arrogance. It begins with truth. The truth that for far too long you've handed out pieces of yourself for approval, validation, and temporary peace. You've let people walk through your mind with dirty feet. You've let fear sit at the head of your table. But no more. You command self-respect the moment you remember who you are. In Shaolin philosophy, a principle, the outside is always a reflection of the inside. If the world does not respect you, it is only reflecting that you have forgotten to respect yourself. When your posture slouches with self-doubt, when your words apologize for your existence, when your energy seeks permission, you have already lost, not to others, but to your own forgetting. So the path back is inward. Begin with silence. Sit still. Listen. The noise of the world, there is a voice within you that is calm, clear, and unshakable. That voice is your anchor. It does not shout. It does not beg. It does not explain. It simply knows. And once you start listening to it, stop needing anything from outside to validate your worth. Next, move to your body. Stand tall, not to impress, but to align. Move with intention. Speak with precision. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you are telling your mind, I am someone who deserves respect. When you let your discipline slip, you feel it immediately. That ache inside, that's not guilt. Your inner self asking, why did you betray me? To command self-respect, you must become your own guardian. Set boundaries, not to punish others, but to protect your peace. Say no, not with anger, but with certainty. Walk away, not to prove anything, but to preserve your dignity. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing yourself. You owe yourself the life that honors your truth. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. When you first start living from self-respect, people may say you've changed. They're right. You're no longer available for games, manipulation, or mediocrity. You are now living in alignment. And alignment is rare, but powerful. When your actions match your values, when your words reflect your truth, when your presence radiates peace, you no longer seek respect. You embody it. You are it. Understand this real self. Respect doesn't need to be loud. There's the calm in your eyes, the silence in your decisions, the stillness in your soul. It is when you can be alone and still feel whole. When you stop chasing love because you realize you are love. When you stop needing approval because you approve of yourself. Commanding self-respect is not about dominance. It's not about control. It's about ownership of your time, your energy, your truth. It's not something you practice once. A daily devotion. You wake up and choose to live like you matter. Because you do. Every time you choose to rise above drama, you strengthen it. Every time you keep your word, you build it. Every time you choose purpose over pleasure, growth over comfort, truth over popularity, you are becoming someone the world cannot ignore. And here is the secret: when you stop needing others to respect you, they do. Not out of fear, but out of recognition. They see the strength in your silence, the clarity in your eyes, the unwavering posture of someone who knows who they are. So today, right now, take a breath and return to yourself. Stand tall in your truth. Speak only what aligns. Walk only where you are welcomed. Love deeply, but never at the cost of your dignity. Respect is not commanded with force. It is claimed through presence. Presence of someone who has met themselves fully and refuses to betray that meeting ever again. That someone is you. There comes a point in every person's life when they look in the mirror and realize that the greatest betrayal they've ever known didn't come from the outside world. It came from within. Not because of what someone said or what they failed to do, but because they themselves tolerated too much for too long. That moment, though painful, is sacred. It is the starting point of transformation. It is in that very moment that the soul whispers a truth we've avoided for years. You cannot demand respect from others if you have not first given it to yourself. Self-respect is not a gift handed to you by the world. It's not something earned through applause, attention, or validation. It is a decision, a choice you make every single day to honor your own time, your energy, your truth, and your boundaries. Born the moment you stop trying to prove your worth and start living in alignment with it. It is a quiet knowing, a calm presence, and an unwavering standard you set for how you allow yourself to be treated. By others, yes, but most importantly by you. Many people chase respect by trying to control their image. They speak louder, dress sharper, achieve more, hoping it will fill the emptiness inside. But respect doesn't come from noise. It comes from inner stillness, from a place of integrity, from a place where your actions and your values no longer argue with each other. When you are congruent, when what you say, think, and do are in harmony, you radiate a quiet authority that cannot be ignored. People sense it immediately. They don't know why they lean in when you speak. They don't understand why they hesitate before crossing your boundaries. But what they're responding to is your internal clarity. Because when you respect yourself deeply, others learn how to respect you. Not through fear, but through reflection. You become a mirror, showing them how to treat you by how you treat yourself. But how does one begin to command self-respect instantly? It starts not with doing, but with remembering. Remembering that you were never meant to shrink for others. You were never created to be silent in the presence of dishonor. You were never intended to beg for love, for time, or for acknowledgement. You were born worthy, whole, enough. The only reason you feel otherwise is because you've forgotten that truth. And that forgetting happens slowly, through compromises, through silences, through self-abandonment dressed up as patience. So the first step is to stop waiting. Stop waiting for someone to validate your worth. Stop hoping someone else will finally see your value. Stop handing out discounts on your soul just to feel accepted. Choose yourself, without apology, without justification, without shame. Make that decision not once, but every time you're faced with a moment that asks you to trade your integrity for approval. Self-respect is built in the dark, in the silence, in the moments when no one is watching. When you rise early, keep your promises, Speak truth even when your voice trembles, and walk away from what doesn't nourish your spirit. It's not about perfection. It's about presence. Being present enough to notice when something feels off. Being honest enough to admit when you're tolerating something beneath you. Being brave enough to correct it. Not tomorrow, but now. There is no timeline to self-respect. Doesn't take years. It takes one moment, one powerful decision to say, I deserve better, and I will no longer abandon myself to make others comfortable. That is the ignition point. That is where fire meets intention. And once that fire is lit within, nothing can extinguish it, because it is no longer dependent on anything external. It is yours, completely. The world may try to test you after that. People may question your boundaries. You may feel guilt, fear, or loneliness at first. But you must understand the temporary discomfort of standing alone is nothing compared to the lifelong suffering of betraying yourself. The more you honor your standards, the more you'll attract what is meant for you: people, opportunities, peace. And more than anything, you will begin to respect yourself, not for what you've achieved, but for who you've become in the process. To command self-respect is not to shout, to force, or to manipulate. It is to stand still in your truth and let everything that cannot meet you there fall away. To walk into every room knowing that you belong, not because someone said so, but because you decided so. And that decision, that inner shift, that quiet declaration to live like you matter. How you command self-respect? Instantly. Self-respect does not need to announce itself. It walks quietly. It shows in the way you breathe, in the way you look people in the eye without hesitation, in the way you sit with a straight spine, even when the room feels heavy. It reveals itself in the decisions you make when no one is watching, and in the things you refuse to tolerate even when doing so costs you something. Respect is not a performance. It is a standard. And once you raise that standard, everything around you starts to shift. One of the most misunderstood ideas about self-respect is that it's about receiving something from others: acknowledgement, admiration, attention. But true respect doesn't originate from outside approval. Originates from inner alignment. When you say yes and mean yes. When you say no and do not flinch. When you walk away not because you want to hurt someone, but because staying would hurt you. Type of clarity creates space around you. Space where chaos cannot enter, where manipulation cannot find purchase, and where self-betrayal has no place to hide. Self-respect demands that you tell the truth, especially to yourself. Something doesn't feel right, don't explain it away. If a situation is draining your spirit, don't justify your tolerance. If you keep lowering your boundaries just to be accepted, realize that what you're being accepted for is not even you. It's a version of you that you've twisted to make others feel more comfortable. But who are you when you're not shrinking? When you stop twisting yourself into shapes that please others? That is the version of you that self-respect was always meant for. There is a quiet power that comes from choosing integrity over comfort. Sometimes it means sitting with loneliness rather than forcing connection. Sometimes it means silence over unnecessary arguments. Sometimes it means walking a path fewer people understand, but one that deeply aligns with your soul. Path isn't glamorous. It's often not loud or praised, but it is deeply fulfilling because it brings peace, and peace is the fruit of a life built on inner truth. You cannot command self-respect if you are constantly negotiating your worth. Every time you explain your boundaries over and over, hoping someone will understand, you are draining the very energy you need to walk in your and then honor it, not to control others, but to protect your own alignment. Respect comes when others see that you do not waver from your values for convenience or connection. They may not like it, they will feel it. And the right people, those meant to walk with you, will never ask you to abandon yourself to be loved. The body also remembers respect. Posture, breath, movement, these are not trivial. They are reflections of your internal state. When you move with awareness, when your breath is steady, when your feet are grounded, your body becomes an anchor to your integrity. Train the body and the mind will follow. Discipline is a form of self-respect. When you feed your body with care, when you rise early to strengthen it, when you push through resistance to complete what you started. You are teaching yourself that your well-being matters. Likewise, the words you use with yourself matter deeply. If your internal dialogue is full of criticism, if you speak to yourself in ways you would never speak to someone you love, then you are building a foundation of self-contempt, not self-respect. Change your words. Speak to yourself as you would to a dear friend who is trying, learning, growing. Not because you're trying to inflate your ego, but because the quality of your self-talk sets the tone for the respect you invite into your life. Understand this clearly. Self-respect is not a singular act, it is a pattern, a way of living. You reinforce it in small moments, daily choices and quiet decisions. Do you keep your promises to yourself? Do you rest when you're exhausted? Or do you grind past your limits because you believe rest is weakness? Do you surround yourself with people who reflect your values or those who require you to lower them? These questions will always reveal where your self-respect stands. There will be days when it's tempting to fall back into old habits. Stay silent, to tolerate things that do not serve you. But you must remember, every time you choose to honor your truth, you are choosing power. And not the kind of power that dominates or manipulates, but the kind of power that stabilizes. The kind that centers you when the world around you is in chaos. That kind of power doesn't need approval. It just is. To command self-respect instantly is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were before the world told you to doubt your worth. Strip away the noise, the pretending, the layers of self-abandonment. Left is someone strong, grounded, and worthy. Not someday, but now. You've always been enough. Now it's time to act like it. There is a difference between being liked and being respected. Most people spend their lives chasing the former, believing it will bring them peace. They say yes when they mean no. They stay silent when something feels wrong. Bend themselves into smaller shapes to fit into spaces that do not honor them, all in the name of being liked. But what is the cost? It is the erosion of the self, the slow but steady burial of authenticity beneath layers of performance. And when you lose your authenticity, you lose your power. Being respected, on the other hand, does not require that you be liked. It requires that you be true. Respect begins when you stop performing and start standing. When you stop adjusting who you are based on who is in the room. When you walk with the same posture in solitude as you do in a crowd. Not about proving anything to others. It is about refusing to betray yourself. In a world where everyone is trying to fit in, the one who is unafraid to stand alone commands attention. Not because they are louder, because they are real. This type of strength doesn't come overnight. It is forged in difficult moments. In the times you feel unseen, unheard, and misunderstood. In the situations where you are given the choice to either conform or remain in alignment with your values. Every time you choose the latter, even when it's hard, you are building something indestructible within you. That is where self-respect lives, not in comfort, but in courage. You command self-respect the moment you understand that not every invitation deserves your presence. Not every argument deserves your voice. Not every person deserves access to your energy. You become discerning. You choose where to give your time. You recognize that energy is not infinite, and what you feed will grow. So you stop feeding chaos. Stop feeding people who only know how to take. You stop feeding thoughts that diminish your worth. And in doing so, you start to grow a sense of inner clarity that changes everything around you. Respect is also deeply tied to honesty. Not just the honesty you give others, but the honesty you give yourself. Are you living a life that is truly yours, or one that's been shaped by the expectations of others? Are you pursuing goals that align with your inner purpose, or ones that look good from the outside, but leave you feeling empty inside? Are you being loyal to your truth, or to your fear of being judged? These are difficult questions. Asking them and answering them with courage is how self-respect begins to blossom. There is also no avoiding the role of discipline in this process. Self-respect is not just a mindset. It is a practice, a way of being. And practice requires structure. It requires commitment. It asks you to show up when it's inconvenient, to train your body when it's tired, to sharpen your mind when it's dull. Not because someone is watching, but because you are. The moment you begin keeping the promises you make to yourself is the moment your life begins to shift. Not because of the results, but because of who you become in the process. Respect doesn't need to dominate. It doesn't need to intimidate. It simply requires consistency. Consistency in truth, in action, in standards. You don't have to raise your voice to be heard. You just have to speak from a place of alignment. You don't need to defend your choices when they are made from integrity. Let your silence say what your words cannot. Let your boundaries speak louder than your explanations. And yes, there will be resistance. Anytime you raise your standard, something will try to pull you back down. People will notice the change. Some will feel threatened. Some will accuse you of being selfish, arrogant, or distant. But their discomfort is not your burden. Their confusion is not your problem. Your job is not to make others comfortable with your evolution. Your job is to remain rooted in your truth, even when others don't understand it. Eventually, the world begins to respond to your new frequency. Not immediately, but inevitably. The people who belong in your life will rise to meet you. The opportunities that align with your self-respect will begin to flow. Peace replaces anxiety. Clarity replaces confusion. And most importantly, your relationship with yourself transforms. You no longer need permission to feel whole. You no longer seek outside approval to feel worthy. You are no longer waiting. You are walking, is what it means to command self-respect. Not to wear it like armor, but to live it like breath. Naturally, steadily, without effort. It is not something you earn. It is something you return to the moment you remember who you are. The final shift happens not when others start treating you better, but when you no longer accept being treated poorly. That moment is quiet. There is no dramatic announcement, no celebration, just a calm, undeniable realization that your dignity is not up for negotiation. Self-respect is not about arrogance. It's not about being above others. It's about refusing to be beneath yourself. When you stop seeking permission to value your time, when you no longer apologize for prioritizing your peace, a new version of you begins to emerge. Not a louder version, not a more aggressive one, but one that is immovable. You no longer explain your boundaries because your energy makes them clear. You no longer justify your choices because your calm confidence speaks louder than your words ever could. Stopped living in reaction to others and started living in alignment with yourself. There is immense power in walking away, not from people, but from versions of yourself that stayed too long in places you had outgrown. The version that tolerated disrespect because it feared loneliness. The version that over-explained because it wanted to be understood. The version that bent backwards trying to make everyone else comfortable while ignoring its own discomfort. That version was trying its best. But now it's time to grow. Growth requires discomfort. Not the kind that comes from chaos, the kind that comes from discipline. The decision to no longer eat what drains you. The choice to move your body with care, even when you don't feel like it. The daily practice of mindfulness so that your mind no longer controls you. You guide it. These habits, though simple, are sacred. They build self-respect in layers. And layer by layer, your foundation becomes unshakable. A moment each morning, before the world asks for anything from you, where you get to decide what kind of day you'll live. Will it be led by reaction or intention? Will you scroll through distraction or sit in stillness? Will you run from the silence or will you meet it with presence? These small choices either water the seed of self-respect or starve it. Choose wisely, not once, but every day, because what you repeat becomes who you are. People often ask how they can make others respect them. The truth is you cannot make anyone respect you, but you can make it impossible for them not to. How? By embodying what you expect. You teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. If you constantly break your own word, others will do the same. If you ignore your needs, others will too. But if you hold yourself to a higher standard, not in ego, in clarity, others will rise or fall. Either way, you remain grounded. This is not about control. It's about alignment. You're not controlling people. You're controlling your space. You're choosing what enters and what exits. You're curating a life that reflects your worth, not just decorates your insecurities. The difference is subtle but powerful. It means you no longer chase. You attract. You no longer prove. You embody. And you no longer settle. There will be people who don't understand this shift. That's okay. Some will say you've changed. And they're right. You've remembered. You've remembered that you are not here to please everyone. You are not here to shrink, to be manageable, or to be agreeable at the expense of your spirit. You are here to live truthfully. And sometimes the price of truth is the loss of people who preferred your mask. Let them go. Let what is false fall away. Let what no longer honors you fall from your hands. You don't need to grip what hurts you. You don't need to chase what avoids you. You don't need to tolerate what drains you. The more you let go, the lighter you become. And in that lightness, you remember self-respect is freedom. The freedom to walk away. The freedom to say no. The freedom to rest. The freedom to rise. The freedom to be fully unapologetically you. And here's the beautiful irony. When you begin living this way, the world begins to respond. Not all at once, but steadily. The people who once ignored your boundaries disappear. The spaces that once drained you no longer appeal to you. Opportunities that felt forced are replaced by ones that flow naturally into your life. You stop swimming against the current of your own truth, and instead, you begin to move with the rhythm of your inner alignment. It isn't magic. It's not luck. It's not even mystery. It's cause and effect. What you embody, you attract. What you tolerate, you invite. What you honor, you amplify. And when you live from a place of self-respect, everything that no longer serves you loses its grip on your life. That is not coincidence. That is power. You don't need to wait years for it. You don't need to beg anyone for it. You don't need to earn it with titles, wealth, or recognition. You can command it right now by remembering who you are, by refusing to abandon yourself, and by making the most important decision of all to live as if your worth is not up for debate. Because it never was. In the end, commanding self-respect is not a singular moment of triumph. It is not a loud declaration or a dramatic transformation. It is quiet. It is consistent. It is earned in the dark, in the silence, in the hours when no one is watching. In the way you carry yourself when you are tired but still choose discipline. It is in the choices you make when your emotions want chaos, but your values demand peace. It is in the countless, invisible moments when you choose not what is easy, but what is right. Self-respect is not for the faint of heart. It demands sacrifice. You will lose people. You will disappoint others. You will be misunderstood. But none of that will compare to what you gain, a relationship with yourself that cannot be broken. When you begin to stand tall within, you stop depending on external structures to hold you up. You become your own foundation. And once that happens, no storm can truly shake you. So ask yourself this: are you tired of seeking validation from a world that does not know your soul? Are you exhausted from betraying your own needs just to keep the peace? Are you ready to finally live in alignment with the person you were born to be rather than the one others want you to become? Because if the answer is yes, then understand this: your time has come. It's not about being better than anyone else. This is about no longer being lesser than yourself. This is about rising to your own potential, not in arrogance, but in reverence. Reverence for the life you've been given. Reverence for the body that carries you. Reverence for the heart that keeps beating, even when it's been broken. And reverence for the mind that, despite noise, fear, and doubt, continues to reach for something greater. From this day forward, let your decisions reflect your worth. Don't just talk about self-respect. Live it. Embody it. Let it shine through your presence before you even speak a word. Let it be seen in the boundaries you hold, standards you raise, and the love you give, starting with yourself. You do not need to be harsh. You do not need to fight. You simply need to remember that respect is not demanded, it is commanded. And it is commanded through your behavior, your discipline, your silence, and your choices. There will be temptations to go back, to lower your standards, to doubt your value. Life will test you. But remember, are not meant to break you, they are meant to reveal you. And what they reveal when you are aligned is strength, not the kind that crushes others, but the kind that carries you. The kind that walks through fire without burning. It is made of something deeper than ego. It is made of truth. Truth that you are not here to be ordinary. You are not here to survive day by day. You are not here to live a life that feels borrowed or borrowed time. You are here to command every moment with presence, to walk into rooms without shrinking, to speak without apologizing, to stand without trembling, to lead without a crown and still be followed. You are here to embody what it means to be whole. And wholeness doesn't come from perfection. It comes from integration, from accepting your flaws and still choosing to rise, from forgiving your past and still believing in your future, from facing your fears and still stepping forward anyway. When you are whole, you are unstoppable, not because of force, but because of peace. The kind of peace that comes from no longer abandoning yourself. That kind of peace is rare. That kind of peace is powerful. So today, the invitation is simple: return to yourself. Drop the weight of people pleasing. Drop the habit of shrinking. Drop the story that you are not enough. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not unworthy. You are simply becoming, and becoming takes time. It takes intention. And most of all, it takes truth. Your truth. And when you live in truth, everything changes. You speak differently. You move differently. You attract differently. You no longer chase people who don't see your value. You no longer settle for environments that don't challenge you to grow. You no longer tolerate situations that compromise your integrity. You become a mirror for what others need to become, but only if they are willing. You no longer try to be liked. You choose to be respected, first by yourself, then, naturally, by others. Is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning. A beginning where your presence carries weight, not because you shout, but because you are rooted. A beginning where your actions inspire, not through words, but through clarity. A beginning where you are no longer invisible to yourself. Commanding self-respect is not about convincing the world you matter. It's about living like you already do. And when you do that, the world has no choice but to follow.
Spiritual techniques. They are practical neurological strategies that affect the structure and function of your brain. When you sit in meditation each day and bring your awareness inward, you're disconnecting from the external world that constantly pulls you back into the old self. You step away from the roles, responsibilities, and familiar cues that reinforce your current identity and create a space where true change can occur. In that space, you are no longer operating on autopilot. You are conscious, present, and aware. This is the only place where real change can happen, when you are no longer living by the emotions of the past or reacting to your environment, but instead intentionally generating a new internal state. By consistently practicing this shift, you are signaling to your body that it is safe to let go of old emotional patterns like stress, worry, or frustration. The more you do this, the more your body begins to relax and trust this new baseline of peace, gratitude, and purpose. Visualization is another daily practice that plays a critical role in mental reprogramming. When you visualize your future in vivid detail, seeing yourself healthy, successful, confident, and fulfilled, you activate the same brain regions that would be engaged if you were actually living that experience. The brain begins to map out the pathways to make it real. Paired with elevated emotions, visualization becomes an immersive simulation of your future reality. And the more often you rehearse this reality, the more your subconscious begins to accept it as familiar. Familiarity is key. The brain likes what it knows, and when your dream becomes emotionally familiar, you remove resistance and doubt. Affirmations also serve a valuable function in your daily practice. They are verbal declarations that reinforce your new identity. When spoken with intention and emotion, they activate areas of the brain related to reward, attention, and motivation. Repeating affirmations like, "I am powerful," "I am worthy of success," or "I am in alignment with abundance," plants seeds in the subconscious. Over time, those seeds take root and grow into beliefs, which shape perception and influence behavior. But just like with any other practice, their power comes from repetition and emotional involvement. Empty words spoken without feeling will not create change. You must feel the truth of what you are affirming. Your daily practice also creates a sense of rhythm and structure that supports long-term change. It becomes a sacred space where you reconnect with your vision, recharge your energy, and realign with your highest self. On the days when external circumstances pull you off course, your practice brings you back. On the days when doubt or fear tries to return, your practice reminds you of your power. This consistency creates momentum, and that momentum builds confidence. With each passing day, you feel less like your old self and more like the person you are becoming. Most importantly, daily practice teaches the body to follow the mind. This is the essence of transformation, when your body is no longer living in the memory of the past, but is instead being trained to feel the emotions of your desired future. Over time, this rewiring becomes the foundation of a new personality. And since your personality creates your personal reality, daily practice ultimately leads to a completely new life. It's not about perfection or massive leaps. It's about showing up day after day and embodying your future until it becomes your present. The idea that the future is created in the present moment is both profound and practical. Most people live their lives waiting for something external to happen so they can finally feel different, waiting for the job offer to feel successful, the relationship to feel loved, or the money to feel abundant. But this way of thinking keeps you trapped in a reactive state where your emotional well-being is dependent on circumstances. The truth is that your future doesn't begin when something outside of you changes. It begins the moment you shift your internal state. When you decide to feel successful, grateful, empowered, or inspired before you have a reason to, you become the cause of your future, not the effect of your past. This is the essence of conscious creation. Every thought you think and emotion you feel carries a frequency, and that frequency is what communicates with the quantum field. The field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to who you are being in the present moment. If your energy is still rooted in worry, resentment, or fear, then even if you visualize a positive future, so your signal is incoherent and misaligned. But if you begin to feel now what you imagine you'll feel once your dreams are realized, you send out a clear, powerful signal that aligns with your desired future. That emotional alignment is what draws new experiences into your life that match your internal state. Living in the energy of your future in the present moment is a skill that requires intention and repetition. It begins with deciding what kind of future you want to create, not just what you want to have, but who you want to be. Who is the version of you that already has the life you dream of? How does that person think, feel, speak, move, and act? Once you become clear about this future self, you begin to mentally and emotionally rehearse being that person now. This is not pretending or fantasizing, it's reconditioning your body and brain to a new identity. The more you practice this internal shift, the more familiar it becomes, And the more your external reality begins to organize itself around that new version of you. This process relies on consistency, because your body is used to feeling like the old version of you. It's used to waking up and feeling stressed, anxious, unmotivated, or uncertain. These emotional states are chemical signatures of the past. When you interrupt those patterns by choosing to feel inspired, grateful, or empowered, even if nothing has changed yet, you are signaling to your body that the past is no longer in control. At first, your body may resist. It will want to return to what's familiar. Even if that familiarity is painful or limiting. But if you persist, if you keep teaching your body how to feel ahead of the evidence, it will eventually surrender to the new. The moment you start showing up in your life as the future version of yourself, your choices begin to change. You make decisions based on possibility, not limitation. You take action with confidence instead of hesitation. You attract different people, opportunities, and experiences because your energetic signature has changed. This shift doesn't require anything outside of you to happen first. It requires only your commitment to change your internal state. The universe is always listening to who you're being, not just what you're saying. When your being is in alignment with your desired future, reality has no choice but to reorganize around that signal. The most empowering aspect of this truth is that every single moment gives you a chance to realign. You don't have to wait for Monday or next year or the perfect conditions. You can begin right now by taking a breath, shifting your attention inward, and choosing to feel the emotions of the future you want to live. That emotional choice is what breaks the habit of being your old self and initiates the process of becoming someone new. When you master this practice, the future stops being something distant and uncertain. It becomes something you're actively creating moment by moment through the energy you bring to the now. Imagine for a moment that your mind is like a computer running software, patterns of thoughts, habits, and beliefs that dictate how you experience life. But what if that software is outdated, corrupted by fear, doubt, and limiting beliefs? What if you could hit the reset button and install a new program designed for success, abundance, and limitless potential? This moment right now is your reset. Begin today to rewrite the code of your mind. So, because the reality you live tomorrow depends entirely on the mental programs you run today, your mind operates much like a computer. It runs on programming developed through repeated thoughts, emotional experiences, and behaviors. From childhood through adulthood, most habits and emotional responses that become deeply embedded in their subconscious. These mental programs shape how they perceive the world, respond to challenges, and define what they believe is possible. If those programs are filled with self-doubt, limitation, fear, or unworthiness, then the outcomes in life will reflect those same qualities. However, the powerful truth is that the mind is not fixed. It is programmable and, more importantly, reprogrammable. You are not stuck with the default settings given to you by your past or environment. You can reset your mind, delete the outdated software, and install new patterns that align with success, confidence, abundance, and purpose. This process begins with the understanding that the brain is constantly responding to your thoughts and emotions. Each time you think a thought, so it triggers a chemical response in the body, which in turn creates a feeling. That feeling reinforces the thought, and this cycle becomes a habit over time. For example, so if you constantly think you're not good enough, your body feels the emotion of insecurity. That emotion then confirms to the brain that the thought was valid, and the cycle continues until it becomes automatic, running in the background without your conscious input. This is how people become stuck in mental patterns that no longer serve them. But these patterns are not who you are, they are learned, and what is learned can be unlearned. When you choose to reprogram your mind, you begin to take conscious control of this thought-feeling cycle. You stop letting your external circumstances or past experiences define your identity and outcomes. Instead, you become intentional in the emotions you cultivate. You become the programmer of your internal operating system. So the science of neuroplasticity supports this. It tells us that the brain is capable of forming new neural pathways throughout life. These new pathways are created through focused attention, repetition, and emotional intensity. In other words, when you repeatedly think and feel in a new way, your brain begins to physically change, forming new circuits that support your new way of being. Reprogramming the mind for success involves feeding it new, empowering input. This means choosing thoughts that reflect who you want to become rather than who you've been. If you want to become confident, start thinking thoughts that a confident person would think. Speak to yourself the way someone successful would speak. Act in ways that align with your highest potential, not your past limitations. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a real experience and an intensely imagined one. So if you can mentally rehearse your future success, feeling it as if it's happening now, you train your brain to expect that outcome. Over time, your body begins to feel familiar with this new identity, and you begin to embody it. The key is consistency. A single thought won't rewire your mind, but repetition, paired with emotional engagement, creates the kind of internal change that leads to external results. Every time you repeat a positive thought or belief with feeling, you strengthen the neural connections that support that mindset. Eventually, those new patterns become automatic, replacing the old limiting ones. You'll find yourself thinking more clearly, responding more calmly, taking bolder action, and attracting different outcomes. All because your internal program has changed. When you understand that your mind is programmable, you reclaim your power. You no longer have to live in reaction to your past or your environment. Instead, you take the role of the conscious creator. Every thought you think becomes a tool. Every belief you adopt becomes a stepping stone. Every moment becomes an opportunity to rewrite the code of your mind and build the foundation for the success you were always capable of achieving. So the concept of neuroplasticity reveals one of the most empowering truths about the human brain. It is fixed. It is constantly changing, adapting, and responding to new experiences, thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. This adaptability means that no matter how old you are or how deeply rooted your habits may seem, your brain is always capable of transformation. For anyone looking to reset their mind for success, neuroplasticity is the scientific foundation that makes this change not only possible but inevitable with the right focus and repetition. Every time you think a thought, a network of neurons in your brain fires together. If you think that thought repeatedly, those neurons begin to wire together more strongly. This is what neuroscientists mean when they say neurons that fire together, wire together. Over time, these neural connections form patterns, circuits in the brain that become your default way of thinking, feeling, and behaving. So if you've spent years believing you're not good enough or that success is for other people, those beliefs have literally formed physical structures in your brain. These structures are not permanent. With awareness and repetition of new thoughts, you can begin to weaken those old connections and build entirely new ones that support a mindset of confidence, worthiness, and success. The rewiring process is activated every time you choose a thought that is different from your habitual pattern. The brain initially resists because it's more energy efficient to follow familiar paths. But when you consistently choose new, empowering thoughts, even when it's uncomfortable or unfamiliar, you begin laying down new neural tracks. With each repetition, these new pathways grow stronger, and the old ones begin to wither from lack of use. This is why consistency is critical. Occasional change doesn't rewire the brain. Daily repeated effort, especially when combined with strong emotion, creates lasting transformation. Emotions play a powerful role in neuroplasticity because they enhance memory and embed experiences more deeply into the nervous system. When you pair a new thought with a positive, elevated emotion like gratitude, joy, or inspiration, your brain registers the experience as important and begins to prioritize it. So this emotional intensity accelerates the creation of new neural circuits. In contrast, when a thought is paired with stress, fear, or anxiety, the brain responds by reinforcing survival-based circuits associated with protection and limitation. To truly rewire the brain for success, your thoughts must be fueled by the emotional energy of your desired future, not the fear of your past. Another important factor in neuroplasticity is mental rehearsal. When you visualize a desired outcome with clarity and emotional involvement, your brain responds as if the event is happening in real life. Athletes use this technique to enhance performance, and it's just as effective in rewiring the brain for personal transformation. By mentally rehearsing your future self, how you think, speak, walk, and respond, you're training your brain to become familiar with that version of you. Repetition of this mental imagery, combined with strong feelings, builds new neural architecture that supports your success identity. The process of brain rewiring also requires patience and self-compassion. The old patterns didn't form overnight, and they won't dissolve overnight either. There will be moments when the old circuits try to pull you back into familiar behaviors and emotions. But with every conscious choice to stay aligned with your new thoughts and feelings, you weaken the pull of the past. The brain adapts incrementally, and with time, it becomes easier to maintain the new pattern than to fall back into the old. So this capacity for change is not just theory, it is backed by countless studies in neuroscience and real-life transformations. People have healed trauma, reversed depression, overcome addictions, and rebuilt their lives by leveraging the brain's neuroplastic potential. The same mechanism is available to anyone willing to commit to the process. When you understand that your brain is designed to change, it removes the illusion of being stuck. You realize that you have the power to architect your own mind, to deliberately create the mental environment that supports success, resilience, joy, and purpose. In every moment, you are either reinforcing the past or creating the future. Neuroplasticity puts that choice in your hands. By thinking greater than your current circumstances and repeatedly engaging with thoughts that align with who you want to become, you literally reshape your brain. This is not about forcing change, it's about becoming aware of your inner world and gently, persistently redirecting your focus. Over time, your brain becomes your ally, so your habits align with your goals and success becomes not just possible, but natural. Becoming aware of your own thoughts is the first and most important step in resetting your mind for success. So most people go through life unaware of the thousands of thoughts that pass through their mind each day. These thoughts often arise automatically, shaped by past experiences, social conditioning, and subconscious beliefs. When left unchecked, they can trap you in patterns of limitation, fear, and self-doubt. The problem isn't just the negative thought itself, but the fact that you are unaware of it and allow it to run your mind on autopilot. Once you become aware of the patterns playing in the background, you gain the power to change them. Awareness is the doorway to transformation. You cannot change what you are not conscious of. As long as your negative self-talk, doubts, and fears remain unnoticed, they continue to influence your decisions, actions, and emotions. But the moment you catch yourself thinking a thought like, "I'm not good enough," or "I'll never succeed," you interrupt the cycle. That moment of awareness gives you a choice. You can either let the old program run, or you can challenge it and choose a new thought. This ability to observe your thinking without identifying with it is the foundation of mental reprogramming. When you become the witness of your thoughts, you no longer have to be the victim of them. Most of your thoughts today are the same thoughts you had yesterday. This repetition creates neural patterns that feel familiar and automatic, but familiar doesn't mean truthful. In fact, many of the thoughts you believe are just repeated stories rooted in outdated perceptions of yourself and the world. Awareness helps you begin questioning these stories. Are they really true? Do they reflect the person you want to become? Do they align with your goals and values? This internal inquiry weakens the emotional charge of limiting beliefs and opens space for new perspectives. Awareness is also a skill that can be developed through practices like mindfulness and meditation. These practices train your mind to become more present and attentive, helping you catch your internal dialogue in real time. When you can observe your thoughts without reacting to them, you break the cycle of unconscious behavior. You start to notice the tone, patterns, and triggers that lead you back into lower emotional states. For example, you might realize that certain environments or conversations consistently spark self-doubt or frustration. With awareness, you can prepare for these moments and choose a different response. The more you practice observing your thoughts, the more clarity you gain about your inner world. You start to recognize which thoughts are rooted in fear and which are rooted in possibility. You also begin to notice the connection between your thoughts and your emotional state. Negative thoughts produce stress and tension in the body, while empowering thoughts generate calm and motivation. With practice, you learn to use your body as a feedback mechanism. So if you feel contracted, heavy, or anxious, it's likely your thoughts are out of alignment with your highest self. That awareness gives you the opportunity to shift direction immediately. Self-awareness also includes becoming conscious of your language and internal self-talk. Words carry energy, and the phrases you repeat to yourself can either reinforce limitation or fuel growth. Phrases like, "I can't, I always mess up," or "this is just how I am," are not just innocent expressions. They're affirmations that strengthen the very patterns you wish to break. When you notice yourself using this kind of language, you can pause and reframe it. You might change "I can't" to "I'm learning how," or "I always mess up" to "I'm improving every day." These subtle shifts rewire your self-concept over time. Awareness is not about judging yourself for having negative thoughts. It's about observing them with curiosity and detachment. You begin to understand that your thoughts are not facts, they are patterns. Some of those patterns serve you and some do not. The power lies in your ability to choose which ones to keep and which ones to replace. Each time you notice and redirect a limiting thought, you weaken its hold and strengthen your ability to think consciously. Over time, this deliberate attention to your inner world creates a mental environment where success-oriented thinking becomes natural and automatic. True transformation happens when you align two powerful forces within you: the clarity of your intention and the energy of elevated emotion. Alone, intention is not enough. You can set goals, so make vision boards, write affirmations. But if your emotions are not in harmony with those intentions, your energy remains scattered and ineffective. On the other hand, emotion without clear focus leads to chaos. It's the combination of the two, thought and feeling, mind and heart, that generates the level of coherence required to shift your internal state and influence your external reality. This alignment is not merely spiritual, so it's biological and electromagnetic. When your thoughts are clear and your emotions are high, you create a measurable change in your body, brain, and energy field. The brain is an instrument of intention. It works like a mapmaker. It plans, visualizes, and sends signals throughout the nervous system to prepare the body for a new reality. When you think a specific thought, such as "I am successful," your brain begins firing in new sequences and patterns. These patterns are blueprints for new experiences. But if your body, which is the instrument of feeling, is still anchored in the emotions of lack, fear, or doubt, there is a misalignment. The body remains addicted to the chemical states of the past, while the brain tries to create a future. This disconnect creates internal incoherence, which weakens your signal to the field and blocks manifestation. Coherence, on the other hand, occurs when the brain and heart are in harmony, when what you think and what you feel are aligned. Elevated emotions are essential because they carry the frequency of your desired future. Emotions like gratitude, joy, inspiration, love, and empowerment are high frequency states that signal to your body and the quantum field that your future is already happening. The more you feel these emotions, the more your body begins to believe and memorize the state of your future reality. In this way, you are not just thinking success, you are becoming it. The body doesn't know the difference between a real experience and one that is vividly imagined with emotional intensity. So when you combine the intention, "I am abundant," with the heartfelt emotion of gratitude, as if it's already true, you begin conditioning your internal state to match your external goal. This emotional rehearsal is a powerful way to rewire your subconscious mind. Most people try to create from a place of lack, focusing on what's missing while hoping to attract what they want. But the energy of lack only creates more lack. The universe doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to who you are being. If you are being anxious, doubtful, or needy, then that is the signal you are broadcasting, and the field reflects it back. But if you are being grateful, confident, and inspired, the field mirrors that energy by bringing experiences and opportunities that match it. When you live emotionally in the future you desire, you create a new baseline for your nervous system. Over time, this state becomes familiar, and you naturally attract outcomes that match your elevated energy. Practices like meditation and visualization help solidify this alignment. In meditation, you disconnect from your environment, your body, and even time. You enter the realm of pure potential where the mind is free to create without the constraints of physical reality. Here, so you can focus entirely on your intention and amplify it with elevated emotion. Visualization helps you see your success clearly, while emotion helps you feel it deeply. The more you practice this internal coherence, the more you train your body to live in a new energetic state. And as your internal state changes, your external world must eventually follow. This coherence between thought and feeling becomes the signature of your new personality. You are no longer the person waiting for success to happen. You are the person living in the energy of success now. This shift alters the choices you make, the actions you take, and the experiences you attract. You move from efforting to allowing, from hoping to knowing. When intention and elevated emotion are consistently practiced together, they create a powerful signal that not only reconditions the body and rewires the brain, but also communicates with the quantum field to draw in a matching reality. So daily practice is the engine behind lasting mental and emotional transformation. It's not enough to have a moment of clarity, read a motivational book, or feel inspired by a powerful idea. The brain and body require repetition and consistency to internalize new patterns. This is how habits are formed, how neural circuits are strengthened, and how old, limiting programs are overwritten. You are not trying to force change in one dramatic leap. You are gradually training your nervous system to embody a new state of being. Every day that you commit to these practices, you reinforce the identity you are choosing to become. The brain doesn't change through information alone. It changes through experience. And the most effective way to create those inner experiences is through consistent mental and emotional rehearsal. Tools like meditation, visualization, and affirmations aren't just spiritual techniques. They are practical neurological strategies that affect the structure and function of your brain. When you sit in meditation each day and bring your awareness inward, you're disconnecting from the external world that constantly pulls you back into the old self. You step away from the roles, responsibilities, and familiar cues that reinforce your current identity and create a space where true change can occur. In that space, you are no longer operating on autopilot. You are conscious, present, and aware. This is the only place where real change can happen, when you are no longer living by the emotions of the past or reacting to your environment, but instead intentionally generating a new internal state. By consistently practicing this shift, you are signaling to your body that it is safe to let go of old emotional patterns like stress, worry, or frustration. The more you do this, the more your body begins to relax and trust this new baseline of peace, gratitude, and purpose. Visualization is another daily practice that plays a critical role in mental reprogramming. When you visualize your future in vivid detail, seeing yourself healthy, successful, confident, and fulfilled, you activate the same brain regions that would be engaged if you were actually living that experience. The brain begins to map out the pathways to make it real. Paired with elevated emotions, visualization becomes an immersive simulation of your future reality. And the more often you rehearse this reality, the more your subconscious begins to accept it as familiar. Familiarity is key. The brain likes what it knows, and when your dream becomes emotionally familiar, you remove resistance and doubt. Affirmations also serve a valuable function in your daily practice. They are verbal declarations that reinforce your new identity. When spoken with intention and emotion, they activate areas of the brain related to reward, attention, and motivation. Repeating affirmations like, "I am powerful," "I am worthy of success," or "I am in alignment with abundance," plants seeds in the subconscious. Over time, those seeds take root and grow into beliefs, which shape perception and influence behavior. But just like with any other practice, their power comes from repetition and emotional involvement. Empty words spoken without feeling will not create change. You must feel the truth of what you are affirming. Your daily practice also creates a sense of rhythm and structure that supports long-term change. It becomes a sacred space where you reconnect with your vision, recharge your energy, and realign with your highest self. On the days when external circumstances pull you off course, your practice brings you back. On the days when doubt or fear tries to return, your practice reminds you of your power. This consistency creates momentum, and that momentum builds confidence. With each passing day, you feel less like your old self and more like the person you are becoming. Most importantly, daily practice teaches the body to follow the mind. This is the essence of transformation. When your body is no longer living in the memory of the past, but is instead being trained to feel the emotions of your desired future. Over time, this rewiring becomes the foundation of a new personality. And since your personality creates your personal reality, daily practice ultimately leads to a completely new life. It's not about perfection or massive leaps. It's about showing up day after day and embodying your future until it becomes your present. The idea that the future is created in the present moment is both profound and practical. Most people live their lives waiting for something external to happen so they can finally feel different. Waiting for the job offer to feel successful, the relationship to feel loved, or the money to feel abundant. But this way of thinking keeps you trapped in a reactive state where your emotional well-being is dependent on circumstances. The truth is that your future doesn't begin when something outside of you changes. It begins the moment you shift your internal state. When you decide to feel successful, grateful, empowered, or inspired before you have a reason to. You become the cause of your future, not the effect of your past. This is the essence of conscious creation. Every thought you think and emotion you feel carries a frequency, and that frequency is what communicates with the quantum field. The field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to who you are being in the present moment. If your energy is still rooted in worry, resentment, or fear, then even if you visualize a positive future, so your signal is incoherent and misaligned. But if you begin to feel now what you imagine you'll feel once your dreams are realized, you send out a clear, powerful signal that aligns with your desired future. That emotional alignment is what draws new experiences into your life that match your internal state. Living in the energy of your future in the present moment is a skill that requires intention and repetition. It begins with deciding what kind of future you want to create, not just what you want to have, but who you want to be. Who is the version of you that already has the life you dream of? How does that person think, feel, speak, move, and act? Once you become clear about this future self, you begin to mentally and emotionally rehearse being that person now. This is not pretending or fantasizing, it's reconditioning your body and brain to a new identity. The more you practice this internal shift, the more familiar it becomes, and the more your external reality begins